Greetings, Astrolabians. It's the best name we've got. You guys are stuck with it for now. Welcome to the Astrolabe. This is Monday, March 31st, and it is good to be back in the labing chair. It was a long weekend. I did not mean to not do a show on Friday, but it was how things played out, and then did not manage to get one done on Saturday because I was hard at work. I have pulled all-nighters the last 2 nights and slept during the day. So I've gotten some sleep. I can't say that I just straight up pulled all-nighters, but I was up all night because that's the best time to work. And we have a very exciting announcement to make. I'm going to tell you guys about that here in just a minute, but I'm going to let a few more people get in here. I see some Trumps in the live chat. My beloved wife in there posting Trumps. We've even got the wife jacks posting Trumps in honor of our Trump sufferers, our Trump's enjoyers, perhaps. Those who have been afflicted with Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome from all of the constant winning. So we post eggplants to in honor of our Trump's boys. And yeah, there's HHs in the chat as well. If you're a channel member, you can post some HHs. We've got Screwed Up Solzhenitsyn now with the HHs down there. Of course, in honor of Hulk Hogan, the great powerful American Hulk Hogan. That's who we post HHs for. But yeah, we post the eggplants in honor of the Trumps carriers, those who have Trumps, and it also doubles as a effective way of combating the algorithm because this channel is absolutely algorithmically suppressed. I need a special streaming platform that will cater exactly to the format of the Labe. And if someone's not gonna build it for me, I may just have to go build it myself. Who knows? All right, I see all the channel members in the chat. Good to see you guys. Well, we got 42 in here, so do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. I'm streaming on Twitter and also here on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Right now, the problem isn't getting subscribers to view. I think like 85% of viewership is from subscribers. The biggest thing is getting non-subscribers, getting new subscribers. May have to employ some techniques here in their near future. This is very interesting. Since I'm sitting here working at night overnight the last couple nights, all of the white screens, anytime a white screen would come up on a website, it was blinding me. And so I went and found an extension to add to Chrome that it's like dark mode for everything. It forces dark mode on everything. And interestingly, it has changed the green on, that's the only thing I can think of, because the green for the members, the name for the channel members shows up in green, and it has changed completely. It's gone from sort of like a dark green to like a bright neon green. That's very interesting. I wonder how that happens. All right. Enough dragging of the feet. We've mentioned to you guys in the past, there's a link in the description that says to follow the cyberbully. We've told you about the project, this fascinating persona who lives beyond the ice wall in the land of eternal white boy summer, made contact with us, broke through, and informed us that he wanted to build something. He wanted to build something for our guys, specifically for our guys. And we've been helping out in this process, and we've hit all sorts of roadblocks for whatever reason. There's someone out there, maybe the Algo Jews, people are talking about that in the chat here, I see. Maybe they're coming after our workflow, our work process. But we are proud to make a very, very exciting announcement. And I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but the last minute I just said, fuck it, we'll do it live. And here we go.
Come in, patriots. Come in, plan trusters, white pillars, white boy summer enjoyers. You know who you are. This is the cyber bully. And man, oh man, have I got news for you. That's right. After months of blood, sweat, whatever else, and basically enough red tape to wrap your Kwanzaa presents with, the wait is over. It's finally here. EWBSX is live, baby. And you, my early adopter cyberchuds, and heck, maybe even a supporting cast of wife jacks out there, I don't know. Well, you get to be the first to hear it. You can tune in right now at ewbsx.app. It works on any browser. I make sure of that. And what's more, a little surprise treat for the underdogs. My sweet little Android warriors, cringe as they may be from time to time, well, you guys get the first look at something that I've been working on in secret. Honestly, it's part of what's taken me so long to launch, but well worth it, I'm telling you. You see, I've been tinkering away like I like to do. Each night out here, under that beautiful, glimmering Arnorian moon, on a new gadget, the Gamma Oscillation Yield Interface module. All you have to do is search EWBSX on the Google Play Store. You'll find it. And iPhone fellas, hang tight. It's coming, and it's coming soon. I basically got the Zyklonic Synchrometer working overtime just to work out those last few bugs. But here's the deal. I'm up in the airship, and I got enough provisions to last me probably a couple of weeks. We're talking seed oil-free protein snacks, white monsters, even a few brewskis. And I'll be testing things out, seeing what works, what doesn't. So remember to tune in often. You don't know what you're going to hear. Could be me ranting around midnight or just blasting old forgotten white boy anthems at dawn. I don't know. Could be anything. That's the point. You get to influence that. The listeners tuning in right now, you're the pioneers. You're the OGs. Like I said, you're the early adopters. The ones jumping on before the bandwagoners can come and clog up the signal. Lord knows what. But you're not just hearing this at this juncture, you're shaping it. This station's future, it's in your hands. I don't know how many ways I can put this, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime shot to really forge something special. One of a kind, something unfiltered, wild, something unstoppable. So go ahead, go to ewbsx.app or get a hold of one of my Gamma Oscillation Yield Interface modules and do me a favor, spread the word. Maybe we can ring in Eternal White Boy Summer together. All right. I'll see you guys soon.
Oh man, when I woke up from my long nap this afternoon, because I was up all night, I did not expect to see this, and it's such a delight to see it and to be able to share it with you guys. This is a very exciting project. We feel very privileged to be the ones recruited into the responsibility, the sacred responsibility of spreading that white pill energy straight from Eternal White Boy Summer. So go to ewbsx.app. I'm not going to do it on the I'm not going to share it here. You got to go find it for yourself right now. However, because there is a Labe live, you're going to have to do a little delayed gratification here. You're going to have to exercise some low time preference. I know you're excited, but you're going to have to hold off, wait until the show is over, and then go tune in. And as he said, as our beloved DJ, the Cyber Bully, said, it's out for Android Bros now. For those beloved little peons, we love you guys. We keep you around because we gotta laugh at someone every now and then. The app is available now for you guys, Google Play Store, and my iPhone brethren out there, it's coming soon. And stay tuned because this party is just getting started. There are so many things coming, and there's going to be so many ways for you guys to interact with us with this. It's going to be a generational defining moment. So EWBSX Cyberbully on Twitter, EWBSX.app, and EWBSX in the Google Play Store for now. iPhone app is coming soon. All right, you guys ready to do some labing? Let's go. Let's get it started off. Let's set the mood. Start it off on the right foot. A national revival. Hype edit.
They've stolen everything in sight, stealing everything. The country's being stolen from American citizens as we watch. And we ought to push back aggressively in their face, immediately, against anything that's a threat to your children. Ought to make you so mad that you swing first and ask questions later.
Now arrives the hour of action.
Nothing more iconically American than a French dude who's a specialist in a Southeast Asian martial art in an action movie. This is America. Yes, the band is the Midnight. Absolute, just banger after banger from the Midnight. Go check them out. You may hear, you may or may not hear a heavy sampling of the Midnight on the Cyberbullies stream. I saw a reminder here in the chat. I had to mention this. Yes, the part of the reason why we've struggled getting all of this out, and one of the foes we must overcome is Dr. Brian Rott, and he's been up to his usual schemes, trying to disrupt our plans, trying to break down the stream, but we will overcome. Okay, so got some stuff about movie theaters here. The movie industry is just in absolute crisis mode now. This new Snow White movie that came out, I played a clip of Tim Dillon the other day talking about it. Has been just an absolute massive flop. It's like the worst Disney release of all time. It's last I saw, it's down to 1.5. It's 1.5 star or 1.5 rating or whatever it is on IMDb. 1.5 out of 10. It's below Human Centipede. That's how bad it is. I would say that a large part of that, we could take responsibility for this reception, because now when the chuds get angry about something, when the chuds decide that something's going to flop, that thing is going to flop. Don't mess with the weaponized autism. We control these internet streets. So when the launch, or when the what do you call it, the trailer was first released, this is how it started. And this is a great channel to follow. Someone in the chat is gonna will know the name of it. I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel that produces these. I'm not going to play all 5.5 minutes of this, but here's a sampling of the comments when they initially dropped the trailer. Snow Brown and the 7 pronouns. Oh, that's great. Okay, so this was the reception. Chat music. Yes, Taylor Brown. Shout out to Taylor Brown. He's the one who got these guys on my radar.
If I saw this movie on a plane, I would still walk out. This trailer makes me want to sit on the TV and look at my couch. I paid nothing to watch this trailer, but I your childhood might be. I haven't seen something self-implode this hard since the Titan submarine. Mirror, mirror on the wall, as a Germanite claim cultural appropriation. Mirror, mirror on the wall, Snow White in the 7 CGI abomination, making the dwarfs look like a PS1 hack reap was a bold choice. Rachel Sagler looks like a medieval squire boy. Marvel's lost $237 million. Snow White, hold my beer. Disney used to make people famous, now it ends acting careers.
And this indeed may end her career. That was 1.5 minutes. There's 5.5 minutes of this now. There's been so much content here. And I got to say, there's something that is, the Iceman says, you can just shit the Snow White theater. Few know this. There's a like a profound cosmic justice of having this sort of dying art industry piece completely faceplant in absolute spectacular style. And then you have this example of the future. The future of a lot of this sort of media is like, what are the elements you've got here? You've got crowd provided content. So the people filling out the comments, they're the ones providing the material to then turn into the piece of art. And then it's an AI voice, so it's being AI produced, which means that like the barrier has been lowered to be able to produce a piece of content like this. And once upon a time, if you'd had this idea and you wanted to make it, you would have had to either have the musical talent yourself or get the artists and all the equipment and record it and edit it and produce it and all of that. Now you could just do it on a computer and in a few hours. Just put the whole thing together, crank it out, and it goes viral. This is like pissing on their grave. There's probably been more people who have seen these videos between YouTube, where they posted it, Twitter, and then it getting shared all over to Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. They've probably gotten collectively way, way more views than the actual movie itself. There's such a profound cosmic justice to it that's absolutely delightful. And as the last one there said something about ending careers. This chick's career it's not going to be over. See, here's the thing. People like this will always have some sort of fake career that they can fall back on, because her ilk of person has a masterful patronage network developed. So when their people fall on hard times, they transmute that into success and overcoming. But it's all fake. It's just fake. She gets lots of money and she gets to go do whatever she wants and fly around and be a professional activist or whatever. But it's all fake. And it's become more and more evident that it's just completely fake. There was a story, I didn't decide to get into it. I'll just mention it briefly. When her big scandal thing happened, where she was talking about like how the original Snow White story is weird and like we don't have a Prince Charming and she's doing her whatever gay feminist thing. And then what really crossed the line is she said "Free Palestine" on a social media post, and the director I think it was the director, had to fly out to her personally and be like, "Would you chill out? Would you sit down and shut up?" And of course, this gets turned into a story about how she, this is like the man who's going and threatening the poor innocent young actress, and the director's son replied to her on social media and was like, "Do you know how many people's lives were dedicated to producing this project? And you couldn't keep your stupid mouth shut." There's I don't know, hundreds, thousands of people who put in hours and days and months and I don't know, years into producing this thing. And then because you can't control yourself, you go flapping your gums on the internet, and basically singly because of you, the entire project has cratered. It wouldn't have done well to begin with for lots of reasons, but her coming out and talking the way she did, and then the internet reacting to it, which again, that's an our guys thing. That came from us. The fact that people are upset about this and they're posting about it on social media and turning it into actual real life impact trends is because of all of the legwork that all of our guys have been doing on the internet for the past decade. This is it manifesting into reality. It's cost these people billions in lost time and the lack of profitability of the film, and it's a massive, massive stain on the face of Disney. That's very unfortunate phrasing, but very appropriate. This is a pretty big deal. Having Disney produce a film. Like, Disney has been the staple. Think about if somebody told you, I don't know, whatever, 20 years ago, you're a kid, that Disney was going to produce a remake of a real life remake of Snow White, and it was going to absolutely catastrophically faceplant and be one of the worst movies ever. Nobody would have believed that would happen. They are in dire straits. And this is something that's extending out to the entire movie industry. There's a number of headlines going around on this issue now, but here's one I picked out from Variety. Texting, weed, and sing-alongs. 4 radical ideas for bringing new audiences to movie theaters. Now, first, this is a very odd title here, or to go with the tweet. Kind of clever in a very shameless way. It's engagement bait, because you know that there's lots of people out there who will see this and they immediately say, you listed 3 things and you said 4 things. They're going to notice the disparity here between 3 and 4. So they're probably going to reply to it, which then boosts it. These things are an IQ test. When someone replies correcting a typo or has some sort of a semantic niggling over something like this, it's an IQ test. If I tweet something and it has a typo or some sort of really obvious disparity like this, there's a very good chance that I did it on purpose, precisely because, like, what's the downside? People are going to reply. It's going to boost the visibility, and it makes me feel smart. It's great. But notably, the 4th idea is not produce quality movies, because that's the only one that matters, really. Produce quality movies. There's a second one. Make movie theaters more exclusive. Make it harder to get into movie theaters. We'll put it that way. Enforce, what would you call it? Like etiquette. Enforce basic etiquette. Now, first one here, the texting is like, since when do people not text during movies? This is one policy that's actually being talked about by this movie theater. We're going to allow people to text. I was listening to Scott Adams talk about this the other day, and he was like, have you literally never been to a movie with a woman? Have you ever been to a movie with a woman who was not texting during the movie? And it's not just women. People text in movie theaters all the time. At least they did, I don't know, 4 years ago, the last time I went to one. Weed. This is another one. They're going to turn a movie theater into a weed dispensary. So you can go buy weed and smoke it during the movie. Well, that's going to cater to a very particular crowd. And I don't know about you guys, but I would not want to build my business model around that crowd. Sing-alongs. Who in the hell wants to go to a movie theater and have a sing-along with a bunch of people? One of the other ideas was pickleball. They're bending over backwards, trying to come up with all these different things. And all you have to do is make quality movies. Make quality movies, enforce etiquette in the theater. And don't charge $12 for a large popcorn. That's probably a medium, actually. Don't charge $9 for a bottle of Coke. These are very simple things. Just do these simple things, and people will go to movie theaters. I still know lots of people who want to go to movie theaters. I still get the desire sometimes to go to movie theaters. But I'm skeptical that the experience is going to be worth it, so ultimately I don't. This is all you have to do. It's very simple. For example, you could produce this movie. You want to make Snow White? Let's make Snow White the right way.
She's gonna save me. No one's coming to save you, Your Highness.
My lord, there's a problem.
Told ya.
What?
Don't worry, Mike. I'll save you.
He's gotta be strong and he's gotta be fast and he's gotta be fresh.
Get him out of here. Princess, I'm over here.
He's gotta be sure and he's gotta be soon and he's gotta be larger than life, larger than life.
Remember to always listen to your parents. I will, Princess. I will.
Sisters, come.
I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the morning light. And he's gotta be sure and he's gotta be soon and he's gotta be larger than life.
Get Princess.
I am being entirely serious, completely unironic when I say a lot of these dudes, these like TikTok guys, I don't even know how to categorize them. Zoomer dudes that just do really bizarre schizo things on TikTok. If somebody produced a feature-length film version of these, be as completely absurd and schizo as you want, I would pay to go to a movie theater and sit there and watch it. These guys are hilarious. The creativity is boundless. And right now, one of the biggest problems is that, like, people say that art there's no artistic instinct or artistic impulse or whatever. The art is dying, and in a sense, yeah, art is dying in one way, but it's actually very alive in another way. There's just a really perverse incentive structure. People aren't there. There isn't like a natural inbuilt reward for producing really good quality art, apart from just trying to attain virality and monetize through the internet, which distorts things. But especially the Zoomer generation is incredibly creative. The artistic spirit is absolutely alive and well. It just needs a little direction. Just needs a little I don't know, a little corralling. It needs funding. It needs funding, and it needs people who will work on it. All right, so Tim Burchett is a a congressman from Tennessee, one of the better congressmen, one of the better Republican congressmen, and he has an ongoing little spat with this dude, this little queer soy boy who likes to walk up to him and get him on camera and ask him gotcha questions as he's out walking. And he says, Tim tweeted this out and said, "My stalker / tracker almost got me yesterday." There was a video of this a couple days, or it was probably a couple months ago, where the guy came up and asked him a question. He just keeps walking and he just looks back at him and he says, "I want to know if you put some sunscreen on those legs, like they're blinding me." So he's just trolling him. And frankly, if I was Tim Burchett, I would be saying, I would be hiring a guy to come do this just to create these, just so I could dunk on him.
Congressman Perry, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
You trust your mother every night to fix your hot pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on.
Look at his face at the end. Oh. Very Gen X of Mr. Tim Burchett. Check out this video here of the Dawn. who. Oh, hold on just a sec. Let me check something here in the chat. Looking for something in particular. Okay, now. Okay. Check out the dawn here. What do you notice? Video's a little jumpy. Get this full body shot. I wonder if he's been working out with Alex Jones. He's looking pretty svelte. It's remarkable that this man is like 79. Yeah, he looks thin. He's thin. He looks spry. He's looking good. He's 79. He's only like 2 years younger than Biden. And remember, Biden like hunched over, shuffling, turns his whole body because his neck won't move. Just the difference in just this alone, looking at the two men alone like this. Basically the same age. One is full of vitality. His power levels are growing every day. The other one is literally dying in front of us. And you can deduce something about their character from that alone. Yeah, Surfing USA says body double. That was actually my first thought. If they had Biden body doubles, I wouldn't be surprised if they have Trump body doubles. It'd be a lot harder though with Trump. Because of his mannerisms that are so distinct, and the way he goes and engages with the press and talks to people and spontaneously engages and everything, you wouldn't be able to do that as easily. It'd be a lot harder, I think, to find a body double who could do that effectively. But I am sure that there are body doubles out there of Trump. Okay, I just realized I had some super chats here. I want to catch up on those because the chat is popping. Rethuglican, $5. He says, shout out to Oren for finally pronouncing my name correctly. Also, a reminder that the Euro right default to shit liberty because they want the gay, but they want the gay butt. Was there more after that? No. So I'm just going to take that as they wanted the gay butt. Thank you for the super chat. And we are going to be discussing that here on the back end of the show. We're going to talk about the AMERICHUDS versus the EUROBROS. It's been melting down on Twitter of late. And there, Bryce is in the chat. I want to give a quick shout out to Bryce, the new father. Baby Dean was born in the last couple of days. And my wife, and anytime my wife has the opportunity to be involved in any way in the process of the supporting a mom who's pregnant or going through the childbirth process or anything related to motherliness, she is the ultimate mother. So she's been talking with Bryce and keeping me updated on the status of things. So welcome, baby Dean. Many years. All right. You guys, I'm sad that I can't just sit here and read the chat the entire time because it's just so good. This is better than my Twitter timeline, is just reading the live chat of the Astrolabe. Another super chat from Rethuglican, $2. He says also 48 smacking down Bonchi was hilarious. You're getting ahead of everything here today, man. That is coming up here shortly as well. And actually, right about here, right now, well, not quite yet, but close. We're beginning the JD Vance segment. So here is our vice president showing up to greet the Space Force Guardians in Greenland.
Hey guys, how we doing? Please, at ease. At ease. Good Lord, sit down and eat. Sit down and eat. Don't let the vice president stop you guys from getting your chow here. How we doing? It's cold as shit here. Nobody told me. Well, thank you all for everything you do, and thanks for having us. So please sit down, guys. Please, please. I want you to eat your food. Usha and I are thrilled to be here. It's a really beautiful flight, actually. You fly over some pretty cool spots. I've never been to Greenland. Apparently, I'm the first vice president to ever visit Greenland, so that's a pretty cool thing. But we're looking forward to hanging out and getting to know you guys and understanding what you do. So I think what do we have? So we're gonna talk to the command and some of the Guardians about what exactly the base does and the important ways it contributes to national security. We're going to get a briefing, of course, about what you guys do every day. And then we're going to talk just about, as you've heard, we have some interest in Greenland from the Trump administration. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with our friends in the media. But I just want to say thank you all. Thanks for having us, and thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you do. The colonel told me that this is a one-year unaccompanied duty station. When we were flying in, we were wondering whether you guys were allowed to bring your families here. So I know it's a lot of sacrifice to spend a year away from your families, but the mission is really important. The Trump administration, the president is really interested in Arctic security. As you all know, it's a big issue, and it's only going to get bigger over the coming decades. So thanks for doing what you do.
Man, it's just, it feels almost trite to say it, but he's just a dude. He's just an ordinary dude. You can just sit and hang out and chat with him. He's just a dude. He is just, I was skeptical of this early on. I saw a friend, I wish I could give him credit. I can't remember exactly who it was who said it first, but he is, you've got Trump as like the archetypal boomer, and then you've got Elon as the archetypal Gen Xer. And I was talking about that, and I can't remember who I was talking to, but he said JD is like the archetypal millennial. And I was like, huh, I don't know. Is he? Does he fit? And just the more you see him in public, the more he is putting himself out there, the more clear it is that he is he's like the most significant figure now and going forth for the millennial generation, I think. And I can only imagine that the troops, when he shows up, being engaged with like that by the vice president has got to be surreal. After the last 4 years, having someone who is just authentic and down to earth and charming and engaging and commands the room. And as Georgie says, speaking of svelte, he's looking great. Look at our presidential ticket. Yeah, the Zoomer is big balls. That's right. Yeah, not being bigger than them, casual. He's one of us. Yeah. And I mean, the cynics, the black pillars will tell you that this is some sort of super calculated effort to be charming and engaging and to magically penetrate into your brains and control you. He's an emissary from the lizard people. Man, if you look at a normal human interaction like this and you feel compelled to project your own subconscious onto someone else like that, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, E4 Mafia for the win. So Jesse Kelly, I forgot to share the Jesse Kelly tweet here. He says JD Vance is truly living the life. He doesn't really have responsibilities as VP, so he just spends all his time doing the things he loves, dunking on effeminate Europeans and hanging with Marines wherever he finds them. Much respect. Love it. That's my vice president. I voted for this. So let's talk about this little spat that he had with Bonchi. This is very funny to me because Taylor and I have been, and Kate as well in the Discord. We alert each other when Bonchi is being Bonchi again. He's such a curmudgeonly, goofy old guy who says some of the dumbest stuff in the world, but then he's also sometimes says really good stuff, and he just has such a distinct persona. So having 48 out here pimp slapping Bonchi on Twitter to the point where it was actually trending for a little bit was a wonderful moment. So here's how it started. First, Eric Doherty posted this video.
There's been some retaliation, some signals at least in the media that Canada's going to respond. Some of these others are going to respond to the president's tariffs. What's your message for Americans that are going to see cost increase on auto manufacturing, new cars, that kind of thing? Is it Buy America, or what's the message going forward there?
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, for the Canadians, and we have many dear friends in Canada, and of course we love the Canadian people, but the Canadian leadership threatening retaliatory tariffs against the United States, as President Trump often says, they just don't have the cards. There is no way that Canada can win a trade war with the United States. What President Trump has said is that he wants to level the playing field. For decades, Canadian leadership has forced American farmers and American manufacturers to play by an unfair set of rules. All President Trump has said is that we're done playing by an unfair set of rules. If you're going to do something to our industries, then we're going to do something back to your industries. That's how you protect American manufacturing, and that's how you protect American jobs. Now, what I'd say to the American people is look.
We're going to get into more of this here a little bit later when we're talking about Europe and the EUROBROS. And they're spazzing out on Twitter. He said with great love and affection. But this right here, this is such a crucial point. This administration, their policy, their stated policy, and what they're following through on, their motivation for what they're doing is they see it as their responsibility to protect American companies. American companies are an extension of American territory. And their responsibility is to protect that territory. I think this is underappreciated. We've gotten so inured into this gay free market libertarian world that we don't think about the significance of having a government that will have the back of its companies and its people when they're engaged in different sorts of interactions outside the borders of the United States. And it's a little harder to notice in the age of the internet, where you can be physically within the borders of the United States, but your operations can be outside the borders. And if an American company has to develop its business model with the understanding that they're going to have to compete with the entire world, when virtually every other nation is free to create structural disadvantages for them to force them to have to compete with the entire world. And if other countries decide to go after them legally and engage in bullshit with them, like Brazil and the EU with X, and then like being mad about Elon's position with X and taking it out on Starlink or Tesla or whatever else, when you have foreign nations that are doing that to your own companies, you, as the national government, have an explicit designated responsibility to protect those companies' interests, because those companies employ, ideally, those companies employ your people. So protecting the company is protecting the people. And it's been 80 years of policy exactly opposite from this. We have inbuilt structural field tilting devices that make it harder for Americans to produce things for Americans. And the fact that we've continued as well as we have for this long is actually a testament to the sheer capacity for productivity and economic success and growth in the United States. Even with the field tilted against us, even with us bearing the brunt of trillions of dollars of orchestrated fraud being flooded out of our country every year, we've still managed to press along as far as we have. And virtually every important innovation that has been created or invented over the past however many years has happened within the United States. So this administration is actually making it a policy. They recognize that their responsibility as the executive branch of the United States federal government, one of their responsibilities is to protect the interests of the companies that were founded within their borders and that employ their people. This isn't a difficult thing to understand unless you've been brain rotted or Dr. Brian rotted by decades of gay libertarian propaganda.
The president ran on this, and he said very clearly that we're done being the piggy bank of the entire world. For 40 years, in the same way that our European friends, I think, have neglected international security, for 40 years, a lot of our friends all over the world have used America as a piggy bank. They have used us to absorb all of their excess economic production. What does that mean for Americans? For Americans, that's meant manufacturing jobs declining. That's meant middle-class wages going down. That's meant whole towns that have been hollowed out by empty factories. And that means an America that is less safe because our manufacturing isn't as powerful now as it was 30 years ago. I've got all these brave Americans in front of me and a few behind me too. We want to send, if God forbid we have to send Americans to war, we want them to have weapons, the best weapons in the world that are manufactured in America and not in China. The way you do that is to rebuild the American manufacturing sector. The days of America being the piggy bank of the world, the days of closed factories, the days of people not being able to get a middle-class job in this country, they're over. And yes, that means we're going to have to fight back even against some of our friends and their unfair economic practices, but the long-term consequence of this is going to be higher wages, more manufacturing, and more economic security for the American people. We'll take a couple more questions.
I'll say it again, it's surreal having the vice president talking this way. CyberChud 2077 says, repeating pattern. Vance says something crazy. Vance insulted by the media. 3 to 4 weeks pass. Vance proven right by the misdeeds of Eurocrats/Canadians. Yes. Yes. And see, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We're going to have to refer back to this video and I'm going to have to control myself a little bit. But this pattern is not indicative of Vance causing misdeeds of Eurocrats and Canadians. This is the perspective of the Eurocrats and Canadians. The EU, the City of London, the IMF, the ECB, the Davos world, all of those, the usual suspects. The worldview they want to purvey to people is that Vance and Trump are doing things that are causing bad things to happen. So if there are people out there who are parroting that line, even if they're doing it for a different reason, they're still declaring which side they ultimately fall on in the nationalist versus globalist distinction. By nationalist, I mean domestic focused. We'll come back to this later when we talk about the Euro debate. I wanted to highlight something that before we continue with the story with Bonchi, I want to highlight something that Josh Ham said here. Regarding the last video, he said, that's great optics, by the way. Troops just watched a VIP as big as 48. Come in, respect the troops, tell them to sit down and eat their food, then give them a quick brief on the schedule, then shut up and go. He knows how to talk to them. And that's going to go a long ways. He says, 48 is going to engender fanatical devotion from my brothers in arms. Okay, let's keep this going here. So, Eric Doherty shared this as he usually does. One of our favorite slop accounts that keeps us updated on such things. He says this guy's messaging is flawless, and then he puts the transcript of all of it. And Bonchi quote tweeted him and said this. He ultimately deleted the tweet. That's why I had to go find a screenshot of it. He said, yeah, I wouldn't call it a masterclass. His answer doesn't even address the reporter's question about raising prices. Yes, because it's a bullshit question. Asking the question reveals you don't understand what's happening. That's why JD answered the way he did. He said, if you're focused on like these things like, oh, price go up, price go down. No, price go up too much, price go down too much. This is the wrong way to look at it. This is GAE, GDP, international free trade slop that we've been inundated with for decades. Whether price go up or price go down matters less than these structural issues. We would be much better off with overall higher prices, but these structural issues resolved. When you restore American manufacturing and you, as he said, ensure that America is no longer the piggy bank of the world. And believe me, when he says America is no longer the piggy bank of the world, this is a direct shot at the existing global monetary system, the entire structure of the whole thing. America is not going to be the piggy bank of the world. We are going to control our own sovereignty. And if we do that, we create a flywheel effect because no other country is capable of the things that America is capable of because of the combination of the geographic location, the what'd you call it, like ecological diversity, the waterways. The Mississippi is a wonder of the world. The navigable waterways that we have within the country here, all the different farmland and pasture land and rare earth minerals and energy potential, and the ease with which you can defend the continent. Oceans, large oceans on both sides. And then the American spirit. Like, that's the thing that ties it all together, is that latent cowboy American spirit. And our inborn desire to constantly push beyond and explore and create and innovate and build. This is something that's latently American. It has to be brutally bludgeoned and suppressed out of us. We've spent the better part of a century having the American spirit being beaten out of us. So if you're like, the price is rise, then you're a moron. You don't understand any of this. You're just like you're the, again, I love Bonchi, but this is gay boomer think. This is boomer truth regime 101. He says, instead, it's the same emotional argument we always get on this topic, which supposes it is somehow unfair to America for Americans to be able to buy what they want at market prices. Oh, market prices! In Vance's telling, the entire world revolves around a relatively few union manufacturing workers. The rest of America can pound sand as they subsidize those industries at the cost of their wages and buying power. This is pathologically retarded. As Taylor Brown said, Bonchi is exclusively coal and bangers, and this is the coalest of all coal. And of course, our guy responds. He says, this is 48 himself. He says, it is this brain-dead liberalism pretending to be conservatism that saw the U.S. go from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which the PRC makes nearly twice as much as we do. And where, if the small island of Taiwan fell to an invasion, we'd be hurled into a Great Depression. This is not just about a few union workers. This is about a globalized economic system in which the United States absorbs much of the producer surplus of the world. This is the equivalent of a person who doesn't produce anything. It depends on everybody else for their consumption and is in debt to them for it, living on credit cards with everyone. Now, for some people, like, these analogies obviously don't port directly, but playing with it a little bit, there's some people who could afford to do that, and there's some people who couldn't. Or let me amend that. Nobody can really afford to do that, but some can afford it better than others. To produce nothing of value yourself, depend entirely upon other people's production for you to consume, and do it all on debt. You have to be exceptional to be able to navigate that successfully. The fact that America has lasted as long as it has and continues to be in as strong of a position as it is because we are an exceptional nation. I'm not saying this as a homer, even though I am, and I would say it as a homer. If I wasn't American, I would be saying the exact same thing. What constituted an American, what constituted the founding stock of the country, was a selection effect for people who are uniquely qualified to maximize the resources of this continent. And we still have those resources. We're just not allowed to use them at all. We've been handcuffed. That's a very strange empire. A global empire that is controlled at the whim of the most powerful nation in the history of the world. And yet it has handcuffs on, preventing it from maximizing some of its best resources. Isn't that odd? Isn't that odd that our balance sheet is so suppressed compared to what it could be? That's not very imperial behavior. Continuing. A system whose brittle supply chains exposed our economic vulnerability after COVID. And speaking of those auto workers this guy has such contempt for, it was the auto workers of the 1940s who allowed the United States to go from a peacetime economy to the best mass producer of aircraft the world had ever seen. By this logic, it should be illegal for the United States to control our borders, because that makes it impossible for employers to buy and sell labor at the price they choose. This is a kill shot. This is a kill shot. Our vice president is in a whole different tier, whole different intellectual tier than all of his critics. President Trump believes in borders. He believes in economic self-sufficiency. He believes America should be a great nation. We've got the vice president pulling out X.com and firing off heaters, critiquing gay old boomer liberalism. And he's critiquing it systemically and comprehensively. This isn't some like scattershot basket of policies. They have a coherent, explicitly delineated worldview where trade and immigration are the same conversation. The future is so bright. And I'm grateful to Bonchi for sacrificing himself as a lol cow for us. Apologies to my Hindu listeners for creating such an image in your mind. And then there was one more from him, from JD. This is just funny, just because I like the I like his tendency to wake up and choose violence. And it's interesting that he would highlight this particular thing. There's people who are tweeting bullshit about him all the time, but he chose this one. He says this morning at Josh Kraushaar this is the editor-in-chief for Jewish Insider, Fox News radio political analyst. This morning, Josh Kraushaar ran a hit piece against me in Jewish Insider, which has become an anti-JD reg. Our president is rubbing off on him a little bit. He's now speaking about himself in the third person, and he's firing kill shots at lib journos who criticize him on the internet. He's learned from the master. It's become an anti-JD reg. It has many problems, including 7 anonymous quotes from cowardly Republicans. Cowardly Republicans! But the most glaring factual error is the below, which says the Houthis killed 3 Americans last January. Actually, the group responsible for that attack was, quote, Islamic resistance in Iraq. Interesting use of scare quotes there, which is an entirely different militia group. The scare quotes kind of call into, it leaves you sort of subtly questioning, is this even a real organization? Now, you might say this is evidence of Kraushaar being the biggest hack in Washington, and you may be correct. Another very plausible explanation is that he's the dumbest journalist in Washington. Either way, shocking an error like this could get through his vaunted editorial process. All I can do is speculate, but it's very interesting that of all the different crackpot journos writing hit pieces about him, that was the one that he decided to highlight for the day and dunk all over some poor fellow. Okay, so speaking of poor fellows, I am now going to subject you guys to something. First, we must do and it's not one of the good ones. Sorry, this is not a Giga-Jew clip. We're going to get a little Giga-Jew here in a little bit, but John Leibowitz is learning about regulatory capture. He had this sit-down interview with Ezra Klein. I'm sorry. I genuinely, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put you guys through this, but it's worth hearing. It's kind of surreal. Here is John Leibowitz learning from Ezra Klein just what the Build Back Better funding steps are to get the 14 steps. 14, huh? 14 steps. Very interesting. The 14 steps to apply for Build Back Better funding.
We have to issue the notice of funding opportunity within 180 days. That's step 1. Step 2, which all 56 state applicants completed, is states who want to participate must submit a letter of intent. After they do that, they can submit a request for up to $5 million in planning grants. Then the NTIA, step 4, has to review and approve and award, again, planning grants, not broadband grants, planning grants.
And it's still at the NTIA. It's still at the first step.
All right, so the NTIA must issue a NOFO within 180 days. States who want to participate must submit their letter of intent. Step 3, they can request up to $5 million in planning grants.
Just planning.
Just planning. Step 4, the requests are reviewed, approved, and awarded by the NTIA.
Planning grants. So you have to get a grant to do the planning to get the grants for the project.
Which currently all 56, 3 years later, all 56 applicants had passed through at least step 5. It took more than 3 years. So it's a long time. States must submit a 5-year action plan. So the states kind of go back and they kind of think about how they're going to do this. And they don't just say, okay, thank you for the money. We're going to spend it. And you can see how it worked out later. We're like, here's our 5-year action plan. Then the FCC must publish the broadband data maps before NTIA allocates funds. So having done the NOFO, the letters of intent, the request for planning grants, then the review, approval, and awarding of the planning grants, then the 5-year action plans. In between that, the federal government has to put forward a map saying where it thinks we need rural broadband subsidies. And then, of course, the states need an opportunity to challenge the map for accuracy. And you can imagine this doesn't all happen in like a day. Okay, so then the NTIA.
Sorry, I just need to give myself a break from the vocal fry and the uptalk for a second here. It's very fascinating. It's very fascinating to see the angle that they're going on this, because I find it hard to believe that Jon Stewart is learning about this John Leibowitz is learning about this for the first time. I find it very hard to believe he did not know this before. At the same time, perhaps he didn't. I have been saying for a long time that you should not be looking at these people as people who see the world the same way you do, but actually like all of the bad stuff. And they're intentionally masterminding all of it. These are not smart people. These are peak midwits. So it is conceivable that this is the first time that these guys have ever actually sat down and really contemplated what this sort of thing means for the capacity to build and develop things, regardless, irrespective of that point. Whether they're doing this cynically or not, what this signals is that regulatory barriers to building and infrastructure and energy are coming down. This is the core shitlibs who are either coming on board to the reality that this needs to happen, like actually genuinely beginning to believe it, or they're just recognizing this is where things are going and they're trying to stay out ahead of it so they can try to control the narrative to whatever extent they can. Okay, more up talk.
Step 7 has to use the FCC maps to make allocation decisions. Then, having already done their letter of intent, their request for planning grants, it's hard even to talk about this, man. Step 7 is NTIA must use the FCC maps that were already challenged for allocation decisions. Then, having submitted all this, I think this one is actually quite amazing. Yeah. Having submitted their 5-year plans or letters of intent, step 8 is states must submit an initial proposal to the NTIA. Then,
is that the result of their $5 million planning fund? This initial
I assume,
proposal?
But then what was the 5-year plan?
And what the fuck did they apply for? What was their NOFO?
Like, if the 5-year action plan isn't the initial proposal, then what's the 5-year action
plan? Forget NOFO.
Okay.
MOFO.
Step 9, NTIA must review and approve each state's, again, initial proposal. By my read, we have had at least 2 initial proposals here, but that's a different issue.
Oh my God.
Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own map. So the government has published a map. They've invited the states to challenge the map. Then states have submitted initial proposals, and they then have to publish their own map and allow challenges.
Wait, who's challenging it within the state?
Well, organized interest groups, environmental group, like I don't know who specifically, but literally anybody. This is, I want to say something because it's very important I say this. This is the Biden administration's process for its own bill. They wanted this to happen. This is how liberal government works now.
This is something they instituted for this bill.
For their bill. This is a bill passed by Democrats with a regulatory structure written by Democratic administration. Okay.
Right.
Step 11. The NTIA must review and improve.
If you ever have a process that gets to step 11, your system is fucked. There should not be a step 11. You should be on to a new you should be on to a new stage altogether by the time a hypothetical step 11 would emerge. These insufferable fucks. This is what you voted for. This is what you have carried water for precisely this for decades. This is what we voted to get rid of because it's strangling us to death. And I think Schlosser is probably right. John Leibowitz is the Tucker of the left. He's playing dumb here, which makes him just all the more contemptuous.
The challenge results and the final map. So the NTIA has put forward a map. The states have challenged that map. Then the states have put forward their maps, had other challenges. And now the NTIA must review and approve the challenges to the state maps. Okay. So we've done step 11, NTIA must review and approve challenge results and final map. We've lost 9 of the applicants at that point. Step 12, states must run a competitive sub-granting process.
Oh my fucking God. At step 12, after all this has been done.
Yeah, none of that could have happened along the way here. We have now lost 17 more applicants. So now 30 of 56 have completed step 12. Step 13, states must submit a final proposal. All the proposals weren't enough to NTIA. Now that goes to 3 of 56. So we've gone in the last couple steps from 56 had gone to this point to 3 of 56. Step 14, the NTIA must review and approve the state's final proposal. And that is 3 of the 56 jurisdictions and states are there. In summary, states are nearly at the finish line. And it says to stop their progress now, or worse, to make them go backwards, would be a stick in the spokes of the most promising broadband deployment plans we have ever seen. End scene.
I'm speechless, Ezra. Honestly, it's far worse than I could have imagined. But the fact that they amputated their own legs on this is what's so stunning.
They amputated their own legs on it's oh my God. I have my libtard friends that I dip my toe into the communities every now and then and see what's going on. And it's fascinating watching all of these the SNL enjoyers who are just so exasperated because Democrats are just a bunch of stodgy, compromising, stick in the muds, I guess compromising and stick in the mud don't really. They're stick in the mud one direction and stodgy and compromising the other direction. They're opposed to progress and they aren't committed to civil rights and they're just patsies for the evil overlord Republicans who are secretly manipulating them all behind the scenes. It's surreal watching them describe this fever dream fantasy world that they live in. But this is what they did to themselves. This is not something that Americans have done to Americans. You render the term American completely meaningless. If you could say that this was an American policy pursued and obtained and enforced by Americans. This is not American. This is occupied government. The government is occupied, or was, by a foreign power, by multiple foreign powers. This is not an American thing. What American empire? Take everything you've ever learned about empires, and then imagine one that intentionally hamstrings itself to promote the interests of every other country. And in so doing, makes everything suck. This is not imperial behavior. This is shadow imperial behavior. This is indicative of a shadow empire that is wielding so-called American institutions to make American institutions seek Canadian healthcare. It's so incredibly obvious. Now, Georgie provides the counter to the John Leibowitz is the Tucker Carlstein of the left, who's playing dumb here. He says, no, he's completely clueless. Don't assume. It's like when you realize your normie-based friends aren't reading Burnham and Schmidt. See, you got me going back and forth here. I'm swaying with the wind of the live chat. On one hand, I can believe that he's completely bullshitting here. He is very smart and is completely soulless. So I could totally see him pulling a move like this. I can also believe that, yeah, he's smart, but he's also retarded. And he's genuinely learning about these things for the first time. He's just reads headlines and sees, oh, big bill to install broadband everywhere. Yay! And he lives in his little ivory tower, so he never actually sees that it was, I don't know, $18 billion or something that was supposed to supply broadband internet to every single, or to a huge number of people. I don't remember all the details. And it hasn't supplied service to a single person after several years. And it's because of this whole process. It's not like he's out there interacting with rural Americans to actually see, yeah, no, not a single person. All of this money has been dedicated toward this cause, and not a single person has been connected to broadband internet because of it. Meanwhile, you'd have Starlink that could be had for a tiny fraction of the cost, and it would probably work better and be a lot quicker and easier. Regardless, whether he is scheming and conniving and malevolent, or he's just this retarded, either way, that category of person is disqualified from leadership, from influence. They cannot have a prominent position if you want your country to be successful. They cannot have an audience. $20 super chat. Thank you, my friend, from High Powered. Says Asmongold's influence is wild. It was about 2 years ago. He got on a call with Ted Cruz over microtransactions in video games. Politically, he's a mercenary that only cares about making money from his streams. Yeah, I've actually, at the behest of Mr. Jason Miranchuk, go follow Miranchuk now, I have started watching Little Asmongold recently. He was saying probably, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, that it might have even been longer than that, 9 months. He was saying, you need to start paying attention to Asmongold. A lot of these streamer YouTubers are starting to become a little politically activated, and they're starting to head down that pathway. The same pathway many of us have taken from sort of generic libertarian. It's like everyone kind of came from the libertarian orbit, and you might have been on the lefty libertarian, maybe like Nazbolish or even like Bernie Bros kind of, or you were more the ANCAP Rothbard type. But either way, these are sort of the adjacent to the default settings that everyone has because it plays on the free market, individualism and liberty and all this sort of stuff. Asmongold is one of these guys who has basically been that way, just kind of generic Bernie Bro sort of guy. But he's, from what I've watched of him, he just kind of calls it like he sees it, and he doesn't really care. I think he's actually a really good example of the FanDuel American or the Barstool American who has a, how would I say this? They when they get politically activated, they typically don't just go, they're not going to be like become intellectually super based. You're not going to make like a bunch of rational arguments and so show them some charts and whatever else. For them, they want politics to take care of itself. They want it to work well. It's just kind of, they have like a surface level understanding. They sort of see some headlines or whatever, and they just want to grill. Like they just want to play their video games or watch their sports ball or go to the movie theater. Just want to hang out and have a good life and work a job and whatever. And this is great. We need our FanDuel Americans. They're very good. We don't need the FanDuel Americans to start reading Carl Schmitt. That's just not necessary. We need the FanDuel Americans to be FanDuel Americans. And when they start coming online, which happens because of people like Asmongold, you don't go from generic FanDuel American to Pete Quinones watcher overnight. You're gonna start wandering your way, and something's gonna trigger your interest in a certain subject, and you're gonna start digging into something. And even if you don't wind up as a Pete Quinones watcher, that's fine. I think everyone should be a Pete Quinones watcher, but there's gonna be lots of people who just aren't. They don't need to. They don't need to get involved at this level. Follow every single little detail and learn all of the arguments. It's not necessary. Let the normies be normies. And when the normies talking heads like Asmongold start edging in this direction, then it should be facilitated. It should be encouraged. Don't start purity testing them. Don't say, "Oh yeah, but he's just yada yada." Shut the fuck up. Write those thoughts in your diary. Nobody needs to hear them. A couple more super chats. Appreciate your guys' generosity tonight. It's the last day of the month, so this is nice. This is you guys are adding to the total here as we round into the end of March. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day, and the day after is Tariffs Day. Got 20 leaf bucks from Slosher. He says, I didn't know who Asmon was until Sam Hyde mentioned him, but I think he's a good weather vane for the normie millennials. I may be wrong. He's playing things up for views, but he's expressing his own opinions, I think. Yeah, fully agree. Fully agree on all of that. He is a good weather vane for normie millennials, especially men. I can't imagine he's got a tremendous number of women who are watching him, especially given some of his lore. Yeah, he does play things up for views, and this is just kind of part of the streamer culture. But he's not afraid to call things like they are. And he's ultimately like he's still a lib. That's the thing, is people are going to continue to be libs, and they're going to continue to have lib default settings until suddenly they don't. They're not going to be argued into it. Things are going to change around them, and their default settings are just going to update along the way. So he'll start talking about like race statistics or whatever, and he'll make the necessary caveats. He'll be like, "Oh, I'm not a racist," or "I think that this person is reacting to this person because they're racist." But he's not screeching about it. He's just like, "Oh yeah, they're racist, and I'm not racist, and I don't think you should be racist, but they're racist." And like this is such an improvement over the what the generic default culture has been. Mellon says the only sus thing about Asmongold is he signed with Night Media / Disney, and there's pictures of him in women's clothing that circulated from a stream. Don't know the context of it. Yeah, that stuff to me just doesn't matter. I could not care less. I'm not like going to be now going and following Asmongold around and asking him to fill out an application form for my special club. And if he checks the box of wore a dress once, then he's not allowed. Like I don't care. Doesn't matter. He's useful for what he is. Yeah, he's good when he's in his lane. Cordy's EZ7. I said Nazbol, and he shows up. It was 10 leaf bucks. He says, always an authoritarian master race. Yes. Okay, let me just catch up on some of these chats. I don't want to. You guys are going fast, and I don't want to miss too many of them. The Asmongold to King Pill pipeline. I didn't know such a thing existed. I don't know if I want it to exist. Kingless Kingdom says, I would like to thank you for introducing me to Pete. You are very welcome. I can't imagine that there's a lot of people who I introduced to Pete. The man has the man has an audience that is, I don't think anybody realizes just how big and influential his show is. We don't have the metrics to gauge those sorts of things yet. Okay. Yeah, I've still got a whole bunch of stuff to get through here. So apologies if I can't get to more of the live chat, but if you send a super chat, I'll definitely read it. Was there anything else in this thread? No, just a bunch of funny videos. Okay. Let's continue. So I got a video here of Antonio Gracias. I played a clip of him a while back on the All In podcast, and he's been helping out with the Doge effort. He's one of these Silicon Valley MAGA guys. And he was in Wisconsin with Elon at this event that they did. And they started talking about the Social Security numbers and the Social Security fraud and the connection to immigration and human trafficking. It's very interesting because this is two immigrants, Elon Musk and Antonio Gracias, discussing this. But this story's not going to go away. We'll just play it. Just play it as is.
Tell us what you Antonio is helping out with the Social Security. So just trying to review Social Security, where you may have heard that we found 20 million dead people marked as alive in the Social Security database. This is so crazy. And then you'll notice there's a strange trend here where how many Social Security numbers were issued. Do you want to?
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened here. We started at the top of the system.
You want to talk about a lot of it?
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of waste. And so that came up with a big list of stuff they're working on. You've heard some of that already. But this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this.
Non-citizens getting Social Security numbers.
Literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed this in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on. Yeah. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from D.C. to Social Security offices to the border to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
Yeah.
This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're an illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid, and they'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview, then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border, they do what's called a release on your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, a notice to appear, which to appear at a judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay?
5.5 million people, 700 judges. So they give them an administrative offense and a notice to appear before the judge, and then release them into the country. The wait to actually get to the judge, if they even went in the first place, is like 6 years. So what are they doing for 6 years? They're just hanging out, doing whatever they want. They're just in the country now. having babies, making money, sending it back home. And if they have a baby, that baby's born in America. Well, that baby's a citizen now.
So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we mapped the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
This is worth just reiterating. It's not people sometimes think that under the Biden administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep, no. They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it, and Elon is right. This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example. We've gone through
1.3 million of them, the people he's describing, on Medicaid. So taxpayers are paying for them. We're literally paying for our own invasion.
On every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people, in those benefit programs. And then what was really, really disturbing us was why. We're asking ourselves why. Right. And so we actually just took a sample and looked at voter registration records. And we found people here registered to vote in this population, yes.
And who did vote?
And we found some by sampling that actually did vote. And we have referred them to prosecution at the Homeland Security Investigation Service.
Yeah.
Already, that is already happening right now.
This is confirmation that what was happening is people were being shipped to the border. They were being brought in. They were instructed, the Border Patrol was instructed to give them an administrative, a traffic ticket for crossing the border illegally, given a notice to appear in front of a judge. There's 700 of them. There was 5.5 million people here. 700 of them, so it's a 6-year wait before they'll even get to the judge. And in that 6 years, they're just going to get Medicaid and a Social Security number and get registered to vote and actually vote. This is an astonishing crime. It was a conspiracy theory not that long ago, and it became very obvious that this is exactly what was happening. And now Doge is giving concrete proof that this is precisely what was happening. So how do you think the next election's going to go? Isn't this interesting? All these narrow margin victories for Democrats. They just keep counting and 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 counting. And look, what do you know? Every time they count for a long time, the Democrat wins. This is now unpacking one of the greatest crimes in the history of the country. This has to go somewhere.
Yeah. And the truly disturbing thing, though, I just want you to know this, a truly disturbing thing to me, and the darkest thing about this to me, the voter fraud is terrible, but the human tragedy this created is extraordinary, because what you don't understand, and people don't know, and Americans need to know, that's why I'm here, is that human traffickers made $13 to $15 billion off of this, okay? That's the money that's going around the world, moving people around the world to our borders because of these incentives. How does it work? What happens? Hey, if you're in Africa and you're in Central America, you got to walk up through Mexico, through America. Who do you pay? You pay the narcos, you pay the traffickers, right? And we were told by ICE, it's between $20,000 and $500, depends where they pick you up, to walk across all those countries and get all the way up to the border. Where's that money goes? It goes to the cartels. It goes to human traffickers. right? There are 30,000 children that have not appeared on the notice to appear already. ICE knows this. 30,000 children, 270,000 children didn't even get notices to appear. ICE told us that kids are being trafficked back and forth across the border to complete families to make this easier. This is a human tragedy.
Do you remember the whole family separation thing during Trump 1.0? When all the libs were just freaking out and, oh, there's cages and they're separating the families. Do you know why they separate families? Because when you don't separate families, you're just begging people to use children, to traffic children to make it easy to get across the border. Because, oh, I have a child. I can't be separated from them. Yeah, family separation is rough for actual families that come across. Because there are, here's the thing. So many of the actual people who are coming across here are taking advantage of the opportunity because it's there. Some poor person who lives in some rural place in shithole country XYZ. Yeah, they're like, hey, if I could get myself in the United States and you're just not enforcing any of this stuff, hell yeah, I'll go up there and I'll get free health care and I'll get a debit card that'll pay for me to do whatever. Like, these people are just pawns. And so they were explicitly trafficking children. They were kidnapping children and using them so that people could come across the border knowing that they're not going to get separated if they have a child with them. And so the Trump administration said, no, we're going to separate families so that we could cut down on this incentive to traffic children. So many people need to be. I'm going to Fed post.
It's not just the money, it's the people and the kids. And how many of these people died on the way up here that didn't make it in? What happened to them? We created a system here that created an incentive for people to come and be taken advantage of by these traffickers. And how do you think they get paid? Well, you're in Africa, Central America, you got $20,000 or $10,000 or $5,000 to pay these traffickers? No, you don't. What happens? You come in, then you owe them the money. You're an indentured servant. If you don't pay them, what happens? What do? They kill your mother, they kill your brother, they kill your family. What happens next? That's what we discovered. And I have to tell you, it's tragic to me. The tragedy, the human tragedy this created is extraordinary. That's the real problem. This is America. We don't do this here in America.
Yeah.
We don't do this here in America. People come here legally, and that's great. Elon came here legally. My parents came here legally. That's the way to do it. This is outrageous.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, you can see, because there's still actually a lot of people out there, especially in the sort of center third of the country, that somehow think this is made up by the right, or it's like some fiction. It's not, that it's somehow not true, but it is absolutely true. And you can see that if you look at things like the state of New York, which tried to make it legal for illegal immigrants to vote in the state of New York. That was only shut down by the New York Supreme Court a few weeks ago. And California has made it health care available to all illegals in the state. And they initially claimed that it would only cost $3 billion. It's now $9 billion and climbing.
Oh, only 3.
So it's really, if you create a massive financial incentive for people to come to the United States illegally, then that's what they will do. It's a very sort of, it'd be strange, it'd be odd if that didn't happen. So the thing that actually has the Democrats losing their mind by far, the real reason for these attacks and sort of the burning of the cars and everything is that we're going to turn off the payments to illegals.
Yeah.
Just as an idea, there was 5.5 million people there. Imagine that it was $10,000 for each one of them. That's $55 billion. This cartel trafficking, NGO facilitated, government sponsored industry is just that. It's a legit industry. This is big business. $55 billion. That's assuming an average of $10,000 a person. One thing Scott Adams mentioned when I was listening to him the other day is apparently, I haven't seen the headline, but he brought it up that now a lot of those coyotes are being paid $10,000 to traffic people back across the border so they don't get deported. That's entrepreneurship if I've ever seen it. And I agree, Bryce says, I truly believe these guys care for people. I stand by the idea of Elon seeing South Africa and not wanting that here. Yeah, I mean, within our little corners of the internet, the autism really abounds. And it's really easy, especially if you spend all your time with like your nose buried in all of these things. It's really easy to fashion fantasies about these guys being, just super crafty and subversive, and they're just saying all the right things and telling us what we want to hear because the behind the scenes they're working to destroy us and undermine us, and like, you got to dial down the autism. If you show up and start talking to these sorts of people like that, they're going to be like, you're a frick, you've lost your mind. This is like, you got to have the little bit of social skills. You got to understand the overwhelming vast majority, 99% of people that you see, 99.9% of people you see are ordinary humdrum normies who are just going through their lives. Nobody is crafting megalomaniacal plans. Those are exceptions that prove the rule. The rule is that if you see someone talking about these kinds of things, working on these kinds of things the way they are, the odds are overwhelmingly good that these are just effectively normies, political normies, who are well-meaning and are just working on this project. And they don't want bad things to happen. They don't want the country to be invaded. They don't want industry being undermined and hollowed out. They don't want American families broken up. They don't want lots of diseases. They don't want rampant crime. They don't want terrorism. Nobody wants these things. And projecting that onto people, just because they don't happen to check every little box that you put on the application to your special social club, is ultimately self-defeating. The world is not going to end tomorrow. These problems took a long time to develop, and they're not going to be resolved overnight. And every single person you hear talk about it is not going to be perfectly comprehensively red-pilled and uber-based on the issue, just like you are. You got to give people time to come around. And know that the majority of them aren't going to fully come around. And that's okay. The world is still going to go on. You can still make babies. You could still buy a home. You could still build a garden. You could still get animals. You could still build a company. You could still do lots and lots of things. You can go to the park. You can go swing on the swings with your children. You can go play with the Frisbee with your dog. You don't have to, someone is wrong on the internet post all the time.
Because, yeah, I mean, because that's not the deal. It's simply not right. If you look at that thing with the Roosevelt Hotel and the luxury hotels in New York, where the Federal Emergency Management Agency funds were being used to house illegals in luxury hotels in New York that the average American can't afford. And they were giving a welcome package and $10,000 debit cards and everything else. Like, it's super real. I mean, I think it's the biggest voter fraud thing in history by far. And moreover, if left unchecked, it would have succeeded. As Antonio mentioned, the time frame for going from asylum to citizen is roughly 5 years.
Yeah.
And so all of the people that came in on that chart that you saw, if the machine behind the Kamala puppet had won, then, they change out the puppet, but it's the same machine. Then they would have actually legalized all those people, and there would be no swing states.
And they added more. Remember, it was doubling every year.
Yes.
It went from 1 million to 2 million.
It was going ballistic.
It was going ballistic. And it's just, these people are just entering the benefit programs now, by the way.
Right.
We're seeing the ramp happen too. And these are just the ones that are in the system. This doesn't count the other, 7.5, 8 million that ICE thinks are out there.
Yeah.
But we don't know if they have numbers. The number is totally uncontrolled. The voter ID requirement in this state is super important because of this.
Yes.
Because the Social Security number, it's not supposed to be a federal ID number, but it basically is. That's how you access all the benefits. This is why we need voter ID, because this thing is not secure. You could walk into a Social Security office today as an adult in America, and get a Social Security number enumerated with simply answering 6 or 7 simple questions and showing some forms of ID that are not federal ID.
Well, you can just actually make it up.
Basically,
you can show basically like a fake utility bill, or
you can show a medical bill and a school ID.
Yeah,
yes.
Medical bill and a school ID, and you can get a
That's an
Social Security number.
Yes.
A medical bill and a school ID, and you could get a Social Security number.
And then from there, you get on the voter rolls, and then
Yes.
Basically, Dem operatives will farm the vote.
Yes.
The problem with this, obviously, is that if you turn the swing states blue, then there are no swing states, and then we're in a permanent one-party system. And as soon as they win that, they'll have the House, the Senate, the presidency, they'll pack the Supreme Court, then they'll double down on the illegals, just like California. So we've already seen this happen in California. California is supermajority Dem. So, but at least California is held back by the fact that people can move out of state. Once you can no longer leave America, they'll be far worse than California. So the gravity of the situation is severe.
Josh Ham says they got to get rid of illegal immigrants first. That's a 90-10 issue. Then maybe some of them might be willing to increase the scope of who goes back, removing birthright citizenship, etc. Baby steps. Correct. And here's the thing. This is how it has to be. It has to go this way. You have to tackle the 90-10 issue first. You have to secure the political victory. You have to preserve, and sure, you could secure the next ones. You've got to get the entire global monetary system completely rearranged, navigate through a recession, and then you could start tackling some of the bigger things. If you don't have the stomach for this, if you're too antsy and you're just going to melt down and doom fap on the timeline because it's not enough and every brown needs to be deported from the country, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're just actively choosing to be miserable. You're actively choosing to be a net drag on society. And you'd be better off just writing your angry thoughts in your diary and then just being a normal person. Mellon says that's how a route works. You turn part of them and the rest follow. Right. And then the voter ID thing. Now here's the thing. I can already see this is going to happen. I know this is going to happen. Everyone wants secure elections. No more voter fraud. We gotta ensure. Think about that. Think about the sheer scale and scope of this project that they undertook. The billions and billions, probably trillions of dollars funneled into this scheme. Total control of the media. Mostly total control of the judiciary. All these different institutions that they've captured. And they only just barely could win elections through it. That is how red America actually is. If there was an honest election, I don't think it's physically possible, but if there was an honest election, I'll bet you the country is probably 75-25. Maybe 70-30. And we've got these 52-48 elections because the entire thing is fake. It's all fake. But here's what's going to happen. We're going to get voter ID to ensure that we have secure elections, which is necessary. That voter ID, nobody's going to want to hear what all that entails. Now you're getting into science fiction world. That voter ID is going to have downsides and upsides, and it is going to happen. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to prevent it. It's going to happen. Prepare yourself for that now, because this is gonna send a lot of people spiraling off into a ditch, and they're never going to come back. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, guys. We're going to get voter IDs. We're going to have a government-issued digital ID. And you just need to accept its inevitability. I'm not advocating for it. I'm saying it's like I'm looking up at the air and there's something falling and I'm like, oh, that thing's going to land on me. I'm not asking it to land on me. I'm not arguing for it to land on me. I'm just, yep, here it comes. Yeah, the libertarians are going to fucking lose it. This graphic here related to the immigration issue, I got to kind of speed it up here because we still got a lot to get through. And we're coming up on 2 hours already. This graphic here is from the UK. Source is from the Home Office down here, but I'm sure that this is not all that different from the United States. This is from Michael Arrowhead on Twitter. Said, okay, I'm not judging. I'm just showing the facts. 1, migrants are mainly young men, not women and children, as the left-green media tends to portray them. And 2, refugees lie about their age to enjoy minors' benefits. The spike just under 18 years is simply statistically not possible. So if you look at this, the red here is female. This is population pyramid of those granted asylum from 2010 to 2023. The red is female. The blue is male. And you can see the light blue is the, what's the term here? It's surplus. So the dark blue is the surplus. So you can see there's basically no dark red. There's a couple tiny little blips up here. This is the ages. So it's middle-aged, and then down you got this big old bar of young men here, right? Just under 18. This is the importation of a military in waiting. A stochastic terrorism military force. And I guarantee you, if they did something similar for the United States, it would look exactly the same. And here's our Gigajew. Celebratory dings. He just randomly decided he wanted to tweet this out on March 29th at 11:44 or 12:44 a.m. 12:44 p.m. He says the fundamental error in how immigration is being discussed in the courts and media is pretending that what happened to us over the last 4 years is a routine civil enforcement matter. No. We were invaded and occupied. Entire neighborhoods were conquered. Entire towns were subjugated. Our treasury was plundered. Our democracy was torn apart piece by piece. A national referendum was held on whether to surrender to the invasion or repel it. America voted for liberation. If every foreign trespasser gets to have their own federal trial prior to removal, then there is no liberation. There is no restoration. The invasion will be made complete. Article 4, Section 4 requires the president to halt any invasion, and no district court can override that mandate. For the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. The invading armies and foreign trespassers will be expelled. The cartels will be smashed. Liberation will be achieved. Now, I'll say this. This is necessary. I'm not spurging out here, but this here is liberal rhetoric. This is still, and he says it up here as well, our democracy was torn apart piece by piece. It's rhetorical, but liberation is not a good in and of itself. This is the liberal world, liberal worldview. Always fighting for liberation from something. In this case, I mean, sometimes you do need liberation from something. We do need liberation from an invasion of foreigners. But the liberal, this liberal frame is going to persist for a while. It's not going to go away overnight. But you'll probably be surprised just how quickly it dies. It's going to be one of those things where you kind of wake up one day and you're like, man, liberalism's gone. People just don't think that way anymore. It's going to go the way of the dodo because it's soulless. It's not an ensouled view of the world, so it simply just cannot exist. It cannot persist, rather. Speaking of foreigners who just come in and ruin everything, there is a problem on X. We're going to get a little inside baseball on X here. So this guy, slop poster, Star Strider. March 9th. Congratulations, India. The Indian cricket team. Interesting. He posted something else that he's since deleted. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like, do you prefer water or tea? And there was just a whole wall of people replying to it. And Josiah Lippincott says, I know what you are. He says this, how Indian engagement farming works on X, a video example. What they do in the real world, they also do in the digital world.
All right, let's see how Indian content farming works. So you can see this guy right here has Star Strider. He's got 18.3 thousand followers. He's tweeted about 200,000 times in the last year. He's averaging about 550 posts during waking hours. So he's posting, or it seems 550 posts a day, which amounts to about like 50 posts an hour if you are working dawn till dusk. And you can see how this works. He's part of this community. Reply guys, I'm guessing all of these people are Indian. He is definitely not from Wales. We can tell, because you can go to click here, click India. Yep, India, he's talking about Indian. I believe this is a cricket star, talking about India, lots of comments about India. Everything's India, 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 congratulations, India. India, 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 everything's India. He posts about India every day. That's because he's Indian. And we can go and see how the payout engagement farming works. Let's take this post, for instance, at random. There's an account, Neo Stinger, is allegedly a black man. I don't think that's right. And here we go. We have posting about India. Let's see about this guy right here. These might actually be Nigerians who are in on the grift, but we can also see, oh, this might be an actual Nigerian. Doesn't matter. You can see how this works. All these people are blue checks, and they're all commenting on another blue check, and they're doing this to boost their engagement rate so they can get a share of the advertising money. So here, there you go. You have stuff about India, 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 India. Everything's India. And he's posting like this because he's Indian. And that's why he's got the Indian flag in one of his posts. I don't know what this is. Probably some sort of pidgin English, something about India. Let's see. We'll go to this guy right here. Let's see. See Indian. Yep. India. Everything's India. He's talking about India. These people are very predictable, and you can see how this works. They're all working together in a gigantic community of scammers who are posting hundreds of times a day in order to boost their payouts from X. So they're obviously gaming the system, and you can just see just infinite examples of this. Again, we type in the word India. Yeah. Great start from the India team. Again, he's probably commenting about cricket. Yup, there it is. Boom, got him. The major, let's see, this guy might be Nigerian, but we can see, yep, there it is. Boom, India, 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 everything's India. You might think he's black. Nope, Indian. Let's see, this guy right here, Nigerian or Indian, call it. Kaboom, India. You might think, but it is what we've got. Anyway, a lot of these guys are AI generated stuff. Look at this. Everything's blue checks. And the reason for this, of course, is they can make money off of life-changing money. I think the average hourly wage in India is something like $3 an hour. Depends on if Google lied to me or not. But my estimation based off of this account's payouts is that he is making about, Indian average wage is under $1 an hour, but I think this guy is making about $3 an hour doing what he's doing. So that's triple the average wage in his country. So in America, that would probably be the equivalent of having a $150,000 a year plus job, and all he's doing is posting every single day. Yeah, there you go. 475 split over 14 days. You're looking at what, $30 a day, more or less, give or take, and he's just posting nonsense all day long. This is a huge problem, and it demonstrates the problem with globalism, which is you have labor arbitrage. That people who are posting in the West designed to make content that people want to see, quality posting. You know, there are people who want to read content on X, and you know they want to support people who do a good job, and it's fine in theory. But then you see people gaming the system from the third world in ways that are non-productive, right? And that's the problem with free trade generally, is that how are you supposed to compete with this, right? You can't compete. It's literally parasitic activity, and unless you have extremely aggressive content moderation, or my preferred solution, just straight up IP banning India from using X, at least to make money, you're going to get gaming of the system like this. And you see this in every industry on the planet. You can see this in manufacturing, in steel production in China. You know, the third world just does not have, there's no dignity, right? These people will just do whatever for money, and they'll post like this all day long. And so it's a problem, but this is a helpful example of the problems of globalism, the problem of free trade, and the problem of the third world more generally. Just a helpful example. And maybe, you never know, maybe Elon will do something about it.
So Elon did react. I don't think it was this video. He reacted to one of the tweets. There was a lot of people who were talking about this for a while. And he reacted to one of them and said that they're looking into this. Because obviously from Elon's perspective, he doesn't want the monetization system being gamed by people who are reducing the quality of the interaction there. Because what there is there's advertisers. The advertising money goes into a bucket that is then available for people whose accounts are monetized. And then the monetization is based on how many blue check accounts reply to your interact with your tweets, and then the ads get posted with that. Part of this is just like, I just don't think that that advertising is a sustainable core business model. It just has so many externalities that it just doesn't work. There has to be better models. Advertising and subscriptions are like kind of the best ways so far, but this is an area that needs some kind of innovation. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And you know, like I know people see mentioned in there, people talk about, you know, just IP banning all of India, and like, sure, that's great. If you have your little social media, I think Gab has India and Israel IP banned, and it just so happened when they IP banned them, all of a sudden everything got better on the site. There's no spam, there's no porn bots, there's none of that. I recall people noting that there was a distinct drop in porn being posted on X and on 4chan. Right after, like on October 7th, October 8th, October 9th, all of a sudden all that stuff disappeared for some reason. But here's the thing, on a global platform like X, you're never going to get just a blanket IP ban for certain countries like that. It's not, we have to get very well into a vibe shift before something like that is going to be conceivable. I think it would be a good policy, but I just know that it's not going to happen. There's going to have to be something else, and I do very strongly suspect that that Elon is actually going to do something with it for the sake of preserving his own platform. Now, another point here, as I've seen a number of you guys talking about this in the chat, there's something we can learn from this. Now, I don't think the lesson to take away here is we need to all debase ourselves and just do a bunch of fake posting nonsense and slop and stuff. Like, you do it for the lulz, but making a habit of it, like, that's not good. We don't want to debase ourselves and degenerate our own behavior and interactions. But if you understand this is how the system works, then we need our guys who are more focused on and positioned for taking advantage of these sorts of structures to benefit us. If there is a structural, I don't know, a dysregularity or something in the system, then we need to ensure that our guys are able to benefit from it in some sense. So if you follow guys, if you have a blue check, get a blue check. If you follow the guys with the blue check, reply to them. I personally, I'm not going to lie. If someone replies to me and they have a blue check, I'm more likely to reply to them. I'm more likely to engage with them simply because that's the incentive. I do want to make money off of it. I make no money on it right now. I think my last paycheck or my last check was $12 for the previous 2 weeks. And part of that is because there's only so big of a pool for paying out creators. There's only so big of a monetization fund. So when you have people like this who are gaming it for a bunch of slop, meaningless slop, posting coffee or tea, and then everyone just says coffee or tea and answers it. The absolute definition of engagement bait, it reduces the available monetization pool for the people who are actually generating good stuff. $5 Canadian again from Slosher. He says, I would gladly pay $5 a month for someone to make a block list updated to filter out these type of accounts. I would imagine that, again, just for the sake of preserving the platform, they're going to figure out a way to cut down on this. And there's a number of ways that they could do it. But I don't envy them the task they have here, because basically anything that they input as some sort of a security measure, it's invariably going to affect the some people who are not engaging in that, but it just so happens to be applied to it, and those people are going to spaz out, and then everyone's going to say this is some master plan by X to screw everyone over. I know how it works. So I don't envy them the task ahead of them, but something has to be done. Chamath has a Substack. Chamath from the All In podcast. He has a Substack where he goes through what I read this week. This is interesting here. He says XAI, so Grok, has acquired X in an all-stock transaction valuing XAI at $80 billion and X at $33 billion under a new holding company that combines both entities. The synergy of this deal is that X's shareholders get a stake in XAI's increased valuation, and XAI gets full access to X's data and user network to train Grok. I don't see how any other Grok competitor is possibly going to be able to compete with this unless the data contained on X gets increasingly slopified. This is why I'm saying there is a structural incentive here for Elon to get this shit figured out, because he is setting this up. There's billions into this now, creating X as the town square of the world, and then training Grok on that. So he has an incentive to get better quality content posted on X because it's going to improve Grok. XAI raised $6 billion in late 2024, valuing XAI at $45 billion, and another $10 billion by early 2025 at a $75 billion valuation. This increase in valuation means that X investors now own shares in a rapidly appreciating AI company rather than just owning shares of a social media platform, fulfilling Elon's promise that X investors would receive 25% ownership in XAI. The advantage for XAI is that it gains full access to X's 10 plus terabytes of real-time data for training, giving it a path for Grok to become the most current, up-to-date, and context-aware language model. XAI gains a competitive advantage at a time when other model makers face challenges. OpenAI and Google are dealing with copyright lawsuits related to training data, while Meta is challenged to improve pre-training for their llama models. So OpenAI and Google are dealing with copyright lawsuits related to their training data. Meanwhile, Elon has just bought the best training data platform, so it's all his now, and he can train his model with that. Grok is probably the single most useful digital tool I've ever encountered. It just is. I use it constantly, nonstop. I don't remember the last time I did a Google search. Anytime I have I'm listening to something or I read something and I'm like, I want to know more about that. I just go to Grok and end up having a conversation exploring this thing or that thing and just learning random things through it. And I saw something recently that they're going to be integrating it into Tesla as well. The man is building just a astonishing empire. Okay, so we've talked about the what would you call this? We've talked about the invader question. We've talked about the shitlib question. We've talked about the Jeet question. Now, we need to talk about the boomer question. Share the screen. Hit the like button, folks. We got 141 watching and 84 likes. Please do hit the like button. College admissions is so competitive, kids are just crashing out. I'm typing this in reeling shock of your typical college application horror story. I recently got back my MIT results and got absolutely crushed, rejected. As the worst case scenario, I thought I would be put on the wait list, but no, nothing. I have a 4.0 UW, 1580 SAT first try, all the APs my school offers, good teacher relationships, multiple national coding awards, and a lot more. I spent so long becoming the perfect applicant. The only thing I could think that I have not done are Olympiads, but I can't help but feel like people who have done so much less have gotten in. Indeed, it's not just a feeling. My interview was great. My experience perfectly lined up with my interviewer's past experiences at internships while at MIT, and we talked for essentially double the allotted time. My essays were humble, personal, and clever. I mean, I've got rejected by Caltech and UIUC already. All I have left is Penn, Stanford, and UMD. All heavy hitters for comp sci that I've never done anything with. I say all this to say I have always been able to get to the top through hard work and talent. At the very least, I exact some control over my outcome. Now it feels like my world is crashing down, like I've separated from the palm of success, ambition, and exclusivity, the elite. Now, despite everything I've done, it is worthless. All the hours I've spent. I've turned down parties, girls, general fun for nothing. There is no work ethic to carry over. The only reason I could work as I did is because I believed that my work correlated with my success, that the steps I take would result in the outcome I work for. Of course, I've gotten into mediocre schools like state schools and easy safeties, colleges that I barely even wrote a real essay for. Now I'm faced with the reality that I have to join the masses. The people that have done nothing all of high school, the kids with 2.9 GPAs, 1,100 SATs, and going for business. I don't want to hear about being egotistical. I mean, I worked for this, definitely more than some kids who got in. Just seeing the rejection letter has turned me so bitter. I've genuinely been religiously disillusioned, can't leave my room, and don't find this here. And don't honestly see a need to continue. I don't want to go to my state school and work hard for 4 years just for the same thing to happen again. And again, I don't want to be a part of the non-elite group anyway. Might as well quit as I'm ahead, or more accurately, severely behind. I'm thinking of just dropping out. I don't want to face people when they ask me if I've gotten into MIT. Or, I mean, I still understand the value of a high school diploma, so going virtual or something. I don't want to live this life of coping with mediocrity by saying it doesn't matter. Isn't it funny how people only say that after they don't get in? How your parents will only say that while trying to mask their disappointment and after telling you your whole life about the importance of a good college. I don't really have hope anymore. What's the point of trying if I can't be at the top? I was made for greatness. I have the talent and the work ethic when it matters. But now I see that those concepts aren't even correlated with success. I feel like I've gone completely insane. I've smashed all my trophies into pieces, ripped apart all my certificates, and just destroyed everything I've achieved. It was cathartic, a physical representation of my need to embrace my failure. But I wish I could destroy this complete loss of life. I lost life. It's so easy to be a good Christian when you can see a good future in your sights. A family that respects you, a beautiful wife, kids who have every opportunity available to them, in cahoots with the top of the world as someone on top yourself. It's so easy to be kind when you can see that you have been given the opportunity to do more than others. But it was never a blessing, it was a curse. It built me up to a point where it could rip out all my hope beneath from me. And as I'm falling to my demise, I say to you, I either want exactly what was ripped out from beneath me or to splatter. I want my ticket to the elitedom. If you're reading this and feel the same, I know other people say the opposite. And I'm not trying to put out your flame if you still have hope, but it was worthless. It meant nothing, all you did. Our accomplishments in this 4-year period simply disappear because it means absolutely nothing. We are the unlucky losers of the evolution of thought and greatness. As society takes its course in the next couple of years, the kids at these colleges will be hired and thrust into elite circles we will never touch, ever. As much as people like to act as if it isn't true. You've been ranked. It doesn't matter if you've done more. The kids who got into MIT right now surpass us completely. We are the losers. If we continue on, we'll have to hear about, well, state school actually saves you money, nerd emoji. My dad went to community college and is now making $100K a year, etc. It's kind of crazy to be on the losing side, but I guess all we could do is accept it. It's like being ugly. Is it better to just marry a person you barely like because it's all you can get in hopes that you may eventually find love in the marriage, although you secretly desire another, or just to give up? I'm wondering if anybody with the same level of accomplishments has also faced this failure. And if you want to insult my character and call me childish for this, just know you've never faced such a true and utter failure. I'd love to be able to talk to this guy. It's assuming it's a guy. Yeah, I sympathize with him. He's not learning the right lessons here. But what he's expressing is very, very common. And it's extremely understandable. The millennial and Zoomer generations of all the generations are probably, how would you say this? We were sold a lie, a complete lie. We were built up, told the world worked a certain way. And that if we couldn't function within that world the way that it was built, there was something wrong with us. Because that world is perfect. We're at the end of history. We're the greatest country of all time. All of our sacred institutions. This is just how things work now. There's nothing more to discover. There's nowhere new to conquer. We've created the system, and you need to submit yourself to the system and work your way through it, and you'll be rewarded. What's wrong? Can't you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps? Well, you know, when I was your age, here's a great example. This is Stephen Schwartzman from Blackstone. From his book. Tell me, said Bill, why do you want to work at DLJ? Frankly, I don't know much about what DLJ does, I said. But it seems like you've got all these amazing young people working here, so I want to do whatever they're doing. Bill smiled and said, that's as good a reason as any. After we talked a bit, he said, why don't you go around and see some of my partners? I did, but when I got back to Bill's office at the end of the day, I told him they seemed uninterested in me. Listen, he said, laughing, I'll give you a call in 2 or 3 days. He came through with an offer of a job. The starting salary was $10,000 a year, which I believe is the equivalent of like $160,000 today. That is absolutely terrific, I said, but there's only one problem. What's that? I need $10,500. I'm sorry, he said. What do you mean? I need $10,500 because there's another person graduating from Yale who's making $10,000, and I want to be the highest paid person in my class. I don't care, said Bill. I shouldn't be paying you anything at all. It's $10,000. Then I won't take the job. You won't take the job? No, I need $10,500. It's not a big deal to you, but it's a really big deal to me. Donaldson started laughing. You've got to be kidding. No, I said, I'm not kidding. Let me think about it. 2 days later, he called back. Okay, $10,500. And with that, I entered the securities business. And he's now a multi-billionaire. This is a world that used to exist. The world the boomers grew up in actually existed, where you could go in and you could firm handshake your way to a job fresh out of college. Fresh out of high school. In high school. We lived in a society. We had a functioning world. And it has been comprehensively, systematically destructed. It's been broken down. We don't live in that world anymore. And those kinds of systems don't get overhauled overnight. You can't just be like, oh, this thing doesn't work anymore, so we just need to pivot to something else. You can't do that in the middle of the game. You can't do it effectively. One of the few great things that Eric Weinstein has contributed to the world is the idea of the ego, the embedded growth obligation. You have all these different bureaucratic institutions that were developed with the idea that they would continue growing and expanding always, for all time, forever and ever and ever. Amen. Really good examples would be like the university system itself, the professor system, the tenure world, and law firms. So like you join you go as an associate at a law firm with the goal that someday you're going to be partner. Well, eventually you get so many partners that, well, you got to go start your own law firm. All right, so I go start my own law firm. Pretty soon you hit a saturation point with law firms. There's so many law firms, so many partners, but you've still got associates piling in. People going to law school, graduating, getting hired as an associate with the goal to become a partner. Same thing with professors. You have kids who go to college because they want to be a professor. But you can only have so many professors, and you only have so many universities. But the previous generations weren't thinking this far ahead. They're just building up all these institutions and setting them running and then just playing their little roles within them. And here's the thing. The boomers are not responsible for creating the problems that now plague us. They were just following instructions in the same way. It just so happened that the world they were born into, when you followed the instructions, everything paid off and you could buy a house working part-time at McDonald's while you're going to college or whatever. That is how the world should work. It doesn't work now. And you're not going to fix it by yelling at the boomers about it. There's plenty of boomers who now recognize how things are. And you can't just task them with just solving the problem because it's not going to get solved. You can't. What we do have is we have our archetypal boomer who's the first person in a long time to actually start doing things to resolve the fundamental structural issues that have created this. This is the same story as the John Leibowitz, Ezra Klein thing. The smothering mother. You're being smothered to death by this system that's supposed to be a safety net, and it's supposed to be it's supposed to be like the fiber that holds our communities together. We have our universities, and you go and you get your degree and you learn, and then you go and you do your job interview and you get your job and you get a good salary and you get a pension, and then you buy a house and you get a mortgage and you commute back and forth every day for 40 years. Then you have your 401k and you have your pension and you get to retire and you get to go play golf, and that's a great life. I'd love to have that life. The boomers are very fortunate that they got to live that life. But that life doesn't exist for anyone my age. If you're going to get that life, it's because you do not follow the prescribed path. Fewer and fewer people are actually experiencing success through that path. But this is the sort of realization that takes time. It takes decades to trickle down through the society and so it can actually move itself. I'm imagining like a conveyor belt, and something blocks the off ramp of the conveyor belt, and everyone just starts piling up. You get a huge old traffic jam, and then the traffic jam itself becomes a problem. So you have to resolve the thing that caused the traffic jam, and you have to resolve the traffic jam, and all the while you just have, it's like you can't turn the conveyor belt off. So you have to try to jerry-rig something to a different off-ramp for the conveyor belt and redirect everything and try to get it to go this way, but you got to try to build it out as the pieces are flying down the conveyor belt. And you don't want them to go flying off onto the floor and start scattering everywhere. So you got to try to build this thing as fast as you can. That's the task that's in front of us now. And the boomer generation, there is a mentality that's latent within the boomer generation that sees us as at the end of history. And so they're resistant to change. They want things to stay as they are. They don't want upheavals. There's this great paradox that we idolize revolutions. The revolutionaries. We were founded on a revolution. We rebelled over taxes. We idolize that. And yet simultaneously, no, we're at the end of history. Everything is locked in place. We can't change these things. These are our sacred institutions that can't go anywhere. Everyone will die. That mentality is going to have to die. And it will die. It's just like if you look at an animal with a mortal wound to the heart, you could say, yeah, that animal's going to die. It's not dead right now, but it's going to die. The boomer truth regime will die. If at no other point than when the boomers themselves are all dead. But we shouldn't wish for them to die because they're going to take a lot of good stuff with them. The boomers brought many great things to the world. I love my boomers. And just because they had the benefit of great economic success, relatively speaking, because they were born into a world where, especially within the United States, the entire playing field was tilted in their favor. Just because that was what they were born in and they benefited from that doesn't mean they weren't also given a whole big pile of shit too. They were the first generation to be subjected to mass media propaganda on a scale of mind-melting degree that no other generation has been more thoroughly one-shotted by the most sophisticated propaganda operations in the world. Many of them quite literally are not even capable of living in the real world. Because their whole world was Truman showed around them. So yeah, they have Stockholm Syndrome. But someone who has Stockholm Syndrome, you're not going to break them out of Stockholm Syndrome by threatening them. Or by being hostile to them. We have to build around the boomers. If they're not going to get on board, if they're not going to buy into it, if they're not going to realize as a generation the harm that they did, and the harm that they did doesn't negate the good things that they did. It doesn't negate the great merits of the boomer generation. We'll remember them fondly. There's so many great boomer archetypes that some of them are already gone, and we'll notice them when they're gone. We'll be able to remember the generation fondly for all the great things that it brought the world. But for now, we have to build around them. To whatever degree they can help, to whatever degree they can contribute, they can give back. They got to benefit from a functioning civilization. So there's an implicit thing here that because you got to benefit from this great civilization and we don't have it anymore because the premise of that great civilization was largely that you were just consuming the seed corn of the future. Well, now we need to build our own civilization. So you guys have to get out of the way. You can help or you can get out of the way. But we are not at the end of history. The 1970s to 2000s way of life is not the only way to live. The liberal world, the international free trade, the structural mechanics of the world as it existed, it can't last. It's not going to last. And in large part because of the destruction that it's done to my generation and the generation after me and the generation after that. But we're not just kids anymore. Millennials, even a lot of Zoomers, we're not kids anymore. And it's kind of gay to just sit around yelling at your elders. Eventually, we're going to be those elders. And what are we going to do for the generations coming up behind us so that they don't go through the same thing with respect to us that we went through with respect to the boomers? Feeling like nothing was left for us. We're having to start everything all over again, create everything anew again. It's up to us. We're going to have to change that. Fortunately, we've got our millennial vice president now. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll share this part. Was thinking about it for a second, but I'll just do it. So this is from Petronius Arbiter, quote tweeting Aesthetica, says, at some point we have to have a serious conversation about what to do with the boomers. And Petronius Arbiter, at Soul of Petronius, says, many fixate on the JQ or liberal white women, et cetera, et cetera. There are some important discussions here, but today the boomers as a class pose the greatest challenge. The boomer is hostess. They are still hell-bent on spending another decade destroying Western youth. Yes, the boomers were mercilessly propagandized, but there is little hope changing their minds. The key will be removing boomers from power across all institutions over the next 2 to 3 years. Either that, or someone needs to create a deprogramming course for boomers that has a 90% success rate. And I don't think that's going to happen. So yes, like there has to be an effort to remove boomers from power. This is a legitimate reason. If you're in a decision-making role, or you're voting or whatever, and the choice is boomer or younger person, the time has come. The younger generations need their shot. We crippled the entire global economy in large part because, oh no, we have to save the older people. We love the older people. We want the older people to have a great last few decades of their life. But no civilization can sustain itself when it places the needs of the elderly, the needs of the elders, above the needs of the young. You're quite literally sacrificing your future. There's not going to be a boomer deprogramming course. But removing boomers from power for their own sake. Like, this isn't, I think it's not useful to go at this from a perspective of hostility. It's not, there's just no utility in it. But it has to happen. We can't have 80 and 90-year-old politicians. Except for Trump. Like, he's the exception that proves the rule, quite, like, definitionally. And even he's going to have to go soon. But it's not just as simple as, oh, get rid of the boomers and everything gets better. We have to build whatever is going to replace it. Whatever is going to replace the system that they used to extract the future wealth from the society in return for fake prosperity today. Now, he used a term here, hostess, and I'm gonna share this interesting thing that I read on The Worthy House. Shout out to the shampoo warlord, Charles Haywood. He did a review of the book, The Concept of the Political by Carl Schmitt. And I'm going to read a little bit from this where he talks about this term hostess. What does it mean? Latin term. So he says, finally, switching gears, let's focus on the key difference between public enemy and private enemy, which is simple within Schmitt's framework, but which causes a great deal of confusion, much of it deliberately caused for modern Christians. English and German do not have separate words for the two concepts. However, Latin, and perhaps more importantly, Greek, do. In Latin, the two words are hostis for public enemy and inimicus for private enemy. The latter is derived from in, meaning not, and amicus, friend, thus not friend. Sometimes the British word foe is used to translate inimicus, though that does not really convey any change in meaning. It is fascinating to me that this distinction appears to have received very little attention from scholars. Almost all searches for the topic simply point back to Schmitt. He traces the origin of the distinction to Book 5 of Plato's Republic, though Plato was relatively narrowly focused on the distinction between wars among Greeks and wars with barbarians. He then cites the 18th century Italian language specialist Egidio Forcellini, who wrote a massive Latin lexicon regarded as the standard reference for the core of the distinction. Quote, "A public enemy, hostis, is one with whom we are at war publicly. In this respect, he differs from a private enemy, inimicus. He is a person with whom we have private quarrels. They may be distinguished as follows. A private enemy is a person who hates us, whereas a public enemy is a person who fights against us. Crucially, an individual cannot stand in a hostis relationship to another individual. He can only do so as part of a collective facing another collective. So the hostis relationship is between collectives. So, for example, millennials versus boomers, or Americans versus Brits, or Russians versus Ukrainians. Moreover, it is not only war, or mostly war, in which the public enemy may be involved. Competition in sports, for example, is a hostis relationship. One could be friends with, even love someone who falls within the ambit of hostis. Even in total opposition, hate is largely or wholly irrelevant to the public enemy. Quarrels with public enemies revolve around zero-sum conflicts that can only be resolved through a contest to decide the matter. They do not revolve around personal conflicts which demand satisfaction through some negative effect on the opponent. Human nature being human nature, an individual regarding someone designated hostis will bear emotions in connection with that designation, and those emotions may be hard to distinguish from emotions relating to personal enemies and inimici. Still, to the point, it is key for Christians that while one can fight both hostis and inimicus, it is only the latter that is, by nature, hated. Because of the lack of distinction in English, the translations of the New Testament we use erase this essential distinction between hostis and inimicus. Public enemies are not in the least a concern of the Gospels. No variant of the word hostis appears anywhere in the New Testament in the Vulgate. Where the complication arises is that in modern Christians, in the West at least, are very strongly catechized with respect to Christ's injunctions regarding enemies. Probably the most well-known such injunction is Matthew 5:43 and 44. Quote, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you." End quote. A similar but somewhat longer passage occurs in Luke 6. The word used here is exclusively inimicus, the enemy whom one can hate, and presumably, though I have not checked, originally the equivalent word in Greek. You might think that this distinction would be an important exegetical matter. Yet I've been unable to find anything in the Fathers of the Church on the matter of our duties with respect to public enemies, and only a little that expands on the biblical injunctions regarding personal enemies. And I suspect, I can't remember if he mentions it in this here, but I suspect that the reason why the Fathers would not have written about this distinction is because the distinction already existed and it was commonplace. It would be you wouldn't describe something that is already well known. It would have been absurd to think about people not making this distinction or not recognizing that distinction. St. Thomas Aquinas, in his discussion of the Summa Theologica, whether we ought to pray for our enemies, exclusively uses the word inimicus, but appears to never address hostis anywhere. The most obvious conclusion, though perhaps a scholar reader of mine can shed light on the matter, is that there is little exegesis on the topic because the distinction was so obvious to everyone before modernity, and nobody would have tried to tie Christ's commands to public enemies. Yeah, that's what I was saying. As Schmidt says, quote, "Never in the 1,000-year struggle between Christians and Muslims did it occur to a Christian to surrender rather than defend Europe out of love toward the Saracens or Turks. Christ's command certainly does not mean that one should love and support the enemies of one's own people," end quote. This seems obvious to any objective observer, yet it also seems to me that conclusion sits somewhat uneasily with that until the millennium. It seems to me that conclusion sits somewhat uneasily with that until the millennium. Pacifism was the default position of most, if not all, Christian theologians, and such pacifism must have been with regard to public enemies, hostis. One would have to study the origin of such calls for pacifism to see if the arguments made alter this analysis. In any case, this matters because Christ's injunctions regarding enemies are often today deliberately conflated with the golden rule, and with the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself in order to use the fictional hybrid commandment as a political weapon. The purpose of this weapon is for the left and their fifth columnists, such as David French, the odious David French, within the right to demand that anyone on the right accede to all left demands. Refusing to do so is cast as hate, which fails to love, a violation of what we might call the false commandment, that we must never recognize or react forcefully to the public enemy, even when great evil is being done. But this is a lie, and it seems obvious it would have been laughed out of the room until very recently. Totally aside from Hostus, Aquinas says, using the term animicus, that, quote, it is lawful to attack one's enemies, that they may be restrained from sin, and this is for their own good and for the good of others. Consequently, it is even lawful in praying to ask that temporal evils be inflicted on our enemies in order that they may mend their ways, end quote. In fact, we are commanded to have enemies, even in the sense of animicus, to the extent that their behavior is sinful. And that we have enemies, in the sense of hostus, has no Christian moral component at all, although our specific actions taken with respect to those enemies certainly can if they implicate other commandments. Schmidt would no doubt agree, but as usual, he says nothing specifically about morality. Let's take a practical application of the hostus animicus distinction. During the Floyd riots, a local Catholic priest was criticized and punished by his cowardly bishop for accurately referring to BLM as, quote, maggots and parasites. Our left-conditioned first response is that a priest shouldn't use mean language to describe others, and that if he does, he thereby sins against neighbor, against charity. But that's incorrect. He sins only against the false commandment, which is no commandment at all. There can be no doubt that BLM and anyone who willingly and knowingly associates with or aids BLM or any allied group or ethnicity is hostess to all decent Americans and should be treated in all circumstances as such by all in our collectivity. In fact, priests should lead this response, using strong language as necessary to stir the people to virtuous actions to defeat the public enemy. Those who lead BLM, who organized the Floyd riots, together with the collectivity of BLM and its supporters, desire to, quote, negate our way of life and therefore must be repulsed or fought in order to preserve one's own form of existence, end quote. If given a chance, they would treat each of us as they treated the heroic Kyle Rittenhouse. Any person who knowingly supports BLM is our enemy, hostus, which means he should not be permitted to live in my society, in my state. When a priest implies this, he is merely recognizing reality. Many other examples of this division, this reification of the political, exist in today's America. To take just one other, demands for open borders, especially where they mean importing wholly alien invaders such as the Muslim Africans flooding into towns across America, are not charity and they are not dictated by Christian love. They are an attempt by our enemies to destroy our collectivity, and therefore anyone who demands open borders should be regarded as hostus, to be opposed by all means necessary. And to close with Schmidt, sadly, I've gone on long enough and we do not have space to cover Schmidt's extra article, The Age of Neutralizations and Depolitizations, which has many insights about technology, or Leo Strauss's responses to Schmidt. The foregoing can be multiplied across the entire front of political division today. We have long passed the point where the bones of contention were such items as marginal tax rates and minor adjustments to trade policy, in which regard neither hostus nor animicus can be legitimately invoked, and arguments could take place within a general American collectivity. Whether we like it or not, Schmidt tells us that the logic of the political, of the essential enmity that exists between two counterpoised collectives, between us and those who do evil or seek to negate our way of life, will, short of a peaceful solution such as geographic separation, ultimately end in war. Come on. Browser's frozen. There we go. That hostess distinction is very useful. Ever since I read this article from Haywood, that thought has been stuck in my head. Not having that distinction really makes it difficult to be political and be a Christian, as if these are separate things. And it's a lie. It's another one of these great fantastical fictions that Christians are necessarily pacifist. Christians are required to be pacifist. That we must embrace our own destruction and the destruction of our people, because to protect our people, to recognize our people, to love our people, we would have to commit a hate crime. Isn't this fascinating? Isn't this fascinating that Christians, like Americans, are somehow being subjected to destruction on their own terms. Like, supposedly we have this great empire that exists to plunder and oppress and impoverish the people who live in the homeland. That's no empire I'm aware of. An empire that prioritizes the non-citizens over the citizens. How could you to call it an American empire is renders the term American total nonsense. Just complete and utter nonsense. Now you've lost the actual meaning of American, which would be someone who is an American who has an obligation to defend Americans and to create more Americans by making babies, to be clear. If being an American includes fashioning a global system that impoverishes and subjugates Americans, then what even is an American? What kind of American are you? Yeah, Taylor Brown, we lose down here mentality. This is not Christianity. I'm drawing the parallel here between like this common impression of Christianity that is supposed that it's the embracing the destruction of your people, as if that's what you're called to do by charity. Being an American means embracing the destruction of Americans. This is nonsense. So let's talk about this dust-up that has happened between the AMERICHUDS and the EUROBROS on Twitter over the last few days. And let me just say at the outset that I, despite being an American, being a very proud American, and enjoying the banter with the EUROBROS, I don't have anything against them. I think I've made it clear that in the time, if you've listened to the show for a while, and I've even hinted at it earlier in this show, that I believe we are occupied. America is occupied. Americans have not been running America. The so-called global American empire is not global, it's not American, and it's not an empire. There is no empire. There's a shadow empire. But what you see as the global American empire is neither global nor American nor an empire. It's something that's being imposed upon us. It's using America. It's weaponizing America to use it as a bludgeon to attain the goals of this shadow empire. And the members of this shadow empire, the ruling powers within this shadow empire, some of them live in America. Some of them work in America. Some of them don't. Many of them don't. Some of them were born in America. Some of them have an American passport. That doesn't make them American. If we're to say that they're American, then American has lost its meaning. Now, there's a natural rivalry that's going to exist between Americans and Europeans. And going forth here, as I discuss this, when I say European, I'm including the Brits in that. I'm using a term that refers to the people who live in the orbit of Europe. I know that there's, the Continentals and then the Brits. And many of the Continentals see the Brits and the Americans as effectively indistinguishable. And many Americans see Americans and Brits as effectively indistinguishable. But I also, as I've said before, believe we're going through this process of ethnogenesis and that America is diverging from its old world ancestors. So there's lots of overlap, but we're also definitely a distinct people. And there are certain realities that are incumbent for each of us in our own positions to recognize as inevitable. as objective facts. Like, from a power political perspective, no European or old world nation is ever going to be able to exist on a power political level with America as sovereign nations. If America chooses sovereignty, by necessity, every old world nation is going to be subservient to the whims of America, of a sovereign America. They're going to have to exist in that orbit because of geographic reasons, economic reasons, logistic reasons, spirit reasons, population reasons. This is just an inevitability. And this is tough for the old world mind to accept. Because America is kind of like the rowdy little brother that's kind of gauche and uncouth and egotistical and sloppy and lowbrow. We're a young nation. But we're a young nation that is detaching itself from the existing system that has subjugated all of us in the name of America. It's had the name of America, but it hasn't actually been Americans. We are defining what an American is. This isn't something that's been clearly established. Americans have been kind of like, I don't know, diet Europeans or whatever. Yes, we have European heritage, and I'm very fond of the old world. I spent a decent amount of time there when I was younger. Not as much as some, but I've definitely been there, and I'd love to go back. I want to have good relations with our old world cousins. But it's also necessary that we recognize this detachment is inevitable. In world historic terms, there was no way that something as valuable and unique as America, being this continent-wide nation with a distinct personality and the sheer breadth of resources and infrastructure capacity, was going to continue to exist in this sort of like world of peers, where all these nations we're all peers of one another, no matter how big or small we are. And then there's the bad guys over there, and we all team up to fight the bad guys. This is fake and gay liberalism that was not going to persist. It couldn't. Invariably, those who have a capacity for greater power are going to attain that power. And those who don't have it are going to be subjected to it. Unless you have this artificial system that tries to pretend we're all equal. This scales from the level of the individual to the level of the nation. We've had this liberalism where all nations, all individuals are equal. And this gets transposed onto the nation state level. All nations are equal. All nations are not equal. And when Americans select a leader for Americans, that leader's responsibility is to preserve the sovereignty and the territorial integrity and the future of Americans above all else. The leader of America does not owe a debt to other nations. His obligation, his fiduciary duty is first and foremost to Americans. American citizens, American institutions, American land, American companies. And his job is to tilt the playing field in favor of his people. You as a father, your responsibility is to tilt the playing field in favor of your child. Now, this doesn't mean there has to be hostility, necessarily. But that's up to the individual actors involved. If you're going to break this existing system and you're going to actually, if the president of the United States is going to actually begin to defend and protect and to promote the interests of his people, it's going to necessarily come at the expense of others because of how the system has been constructed. And it's up to every other one to begin to get involved in this process to protect their own interests. There is a zero-sum aspect to this. There is going to be one that is above all the others. And that one is not going to be some little island nation the size of Michigan. It's not going to be some slightly larger nation that's embedded in the middle of this continent, surrounded by a bunch of others where they've got centuries worth of bad blood and hostility toward one another. The geographic and ecological realities of the old world, Europe, continental Europe, Britain, are such that they will not be able to maintain their status as global imperial powers. You're not going to have the French Empire or the Spanish Empire or the British Empire in this world, in a globally networked world where the United States is now fully populated and throwing off the constraints that have been artificially placed upon it to hold it back. It's simply inevitable that it is going to be, even in a multipolar world, it is going to be the pole, the one that's above all the others. It's going to be have the capacity to project the most power, to generate the most productivity. This is just simply inevitable. You can't fight against it. The best you can do is position yourself to draft in its wake. This is the perspective that the European leadership class needs to have. And in the same way that it is not Americans who built the global American empire, it is not Europeans who constitute the leadership class of Europe. Our quarrel is not with rank and file Europeans. Our quarrel is with their leadership class, which is a people without citizenship. They do not have a country. I think the best way to think about the globalists, the managerialists, the professional managerial class is it is an ethnicity. It's an ethnicity that emerged and developed, that is transnational. It's like a class that has become its own ethnicity. And yeah, they may have been born in this country or that country. They may have this passport or that passport. They may have this heritage or that heritage. But they have willingly subsumed themselves into this rogue ethnicity that has some elements of this and some elements of that. And it's this emergent thing that could only come to exist in a world of mass media, of globally internetworked, a globally internetworked world. So again, our quarrel is not with the rank and file Europeans, unless the rank and file Europeans start parroting the propaganda of their rogue leadership class. So first of all, let's just set the stage on this just a little bit. Let's see. Let's start with this. I'm pretty sure this is not real. However, you really have to stop and think for a minute. You really have to. This is extremely believable, and that is telling. So Bobbies in London started using roller skates to catch criminals, as their police cruisers may be the cause of global warming. With no police cars, the reduction could amount to some reduction in total CO2 yearly, thus saving the planet. Fire trucks and ambulances are slated for review in 2026. Scott in the Yard mentioned it was more about getting around faster, but whenever they hit grass or a pebble, they fall down. The program is currently under review for effectiveness.
He's got him, he's got him, he's got him. Keep running, boys! Should we just... Guys, it's for yes! Guys, it's for
Now, like I said, I don't think it's real, but I'm not 100% confident. I'm not 100% confident this isn't real, because it's entirely conceivable. This is effectively what British police have been reduced to. Whether they're actually embracing zooming around on roller skates to combat climate change, this is effectively what they've been reduced to. You can't talk to me about me needing to sacrifice the sovereignty of my country to bail you out of your shitty situation when this is what your country looks like. You've got problems close to home. Your job is not to police the U.S. president and to demand that he do special things, compromise on his obligations to his own country, to do special things for you because you're in such a bad state. He has no obligation to you. Or there's this. In France, Marine Le Pen is sentenced to ineligibility. She's unable to run for elected office for 5 years with provisory execution, meaning the sentence must be served even during appeal. Inexplicable, the judge only said it appears necessary to impose provisory execution. A 100,000 euro fine, 4 years imprisonment, with the first 2 years to be served under house arrest and the remainder suspended. Just pure banana republic stuff. This is from Pascal Emmanuel Gobry, a Frenchman. Why 2 years of house arrest? Is there a risk she might steal a car? The only plausible explanation is that it is to prevent her campaigning for whoever is the RN's candidate in the next elections. To be clear, Marine Le Pen is not even accused of personally profiting from anything. The charge is that some of her aides in the European Parliament also worked for the party, and not just on parliamentary work. This was a common practice for a long time, and several other parties stand accused of doing the same, including Modem, a centrist party whose leader is currently Prime Minister of France, and LFI, the biggest far-left party. The embezzlement charge is the idea that if parliamentary aides do non-parliamentary work, their salary is being embezzled. Everyone can make up their mind as to what this means. They could have fined her for improper use of parliamentary funds. That would have been defensible. Ineligibility and house arrest are inexplicable except as pure politics. Just to be clear, every day, criminals who steal, rob, and attack get suspended sentences from French judges. Under French criminal law, judges can decide provisory execution if there is a risk of repeat offense, which in this case is absurd. The judge said that there was a risk of repeat offense, but did not explain why. This is the judge who handed down the sentence. Meanwhile, this is what's happening in France as police are being chased by migrant gangs out of this particular zone.
Regardez comment ils vont casser les voitures des policiers. Mesure de l'Aïd, wesh. Non, c'est pas bon. Nos voitures à Lima, nos voitures. Nos voitures à Lima. Ta voiture, elle est où? La police, elle part.
So that being said, I posted this yesterday or the other day. I said the last couple days have revealed to me that there's a certain class of right-wing Europeans who immediately begin chanting shitlib incantations as soon as someone suggests POTUS doesn't owe them anything. Now, I'm going to read a Sargon tweet here in a little bit, but I want to make clear that I'm not thinking of Sargon when I say this. I like Sargon. I like AA. I think these guys are sincere. I don't think that they're grifting. I don't think that they're bullshitting. I think they genuinely believe what they're saying. And I like them. I understand their perspective. But the perspective that they're presenting indicates the very distinction between Americans and Europeans that they're not getting. This is what Sargon said regarding Canada. Defiant L said, "What's happening in Canada? Mark Carney is now 14 points ahead of Pierre Poilievre." Mark Carney, the Davos installation. And Sargon says, "I'll tell you what's happening, but you won't like to hear it. Trump's belligerence towards Canada, along with the cold face his administration has shown to America's allies more broadly, has hurt the right-wing cause in every other country. It has allowed the left to claim the nationalistic position and made their right-wingers seem like either patsies of a hostile foreign power or liars that they don't want the same thing as him. It seems that despite the liberals being responsible for literally all of Canada's problems, they're going to win again purely because Trump decided that scaring the Canadians with annexation was a good idea, rather than attacking their Liberal Party as the source of Canada's woes and propping up Poilievre as an alternative. It might not feel that it matters, but it would be better and wiser to have many allies who have leaders who agree with and cooperate with Trump, rather than Trump alone constantly fighting against the divesting left-wing empire. In summary, the Trump administration and the MAGA movement need to learn to moderate and govern, and not just conquer. The battle has been won. The war is over. Now they have to win the peace." Where to begin with this? Okay. First of all, the idea that Poilievre is an alternative is preposterous. But leaving that aside, Trump's belligerence towards Canada, along with the cold face his administration has shown to America's allies more broadly, has hurt the right-wing cause in every other country. Even if that's true, I would beg to differ, but just granting the point, even if that's true, Trump's responsibility is not promoting the right-wing cause in every other country. This is global American empire thinking. This is Fukuyama brain. If Trump preserving American integrity and advocating for American interests hurts the right-wing cause in other countries, that's too bad. Trump's responsibility is not to promote the right-wing cause in other countries. Trump's responsibility is to protect the integrity of the United States and promote the interests of the United States. This is what the multipolar world is. And our old world bros are going to have to come to grips with the fact that this trajectory of history is not going to look fondly upon them. Of all the different regions in the world, Europe is uniquely positioned to get BTFO'd by this next world transition. That doesn't make me happy. I'm stating this as it's just a reality. They're not equipped to maintain first world status and complete sovereignty and be a superpower in this new multipolar world. It's not going to be possible. It hasn't been possible in the first place. The European way of life has been massively subsidized by the United States. Ever since we went over there and bailed them out of their wars twice. We sacrificed men and treasure and time, and we got ourselves a cut out of it, for sure. Because that's what happens. If we're going to come bail you out of a war you guys start, yeah, we're going to get something for it. But it was a poison pill. We got something for it in the short term, but it cost us in the long term. We haven't had, ever since we went over and got involved in all that, we haven't had control over our own borders, over our own currency, over our own trade. Now we're going to. And the cost of us executing that plan to regain control of all of those things is going to be that Europe's going to have to come to grips with the reality that's staring them in the face. Which is that the only reason that they exist in the economic standing they do today is because of American subsidies. And America cannot continue to subsidize the European way of life. It's a matter of existential reality for us. Our nation will cease to exist if we can continue subsidizing Europe. We got to go our own way. We got to take care of ourselves. And that's going to be hard for Europe. But that's how things are. That's the hand that you've been dealt. And yes, I want America to ally with these countries. But the idea that I just played you those videos of the absurdity that is the leadership class and the governing institutions within Europe right now. And how in the flying hell is Trump supposed to protect and promote American industry and American interests and rebalance trade and get rid of this debt millstone around the necks of America that has been created by European banks, wildly printing dollars, completely uncollateralized, hyper-leveraged, that we're paying the price for? How is he supposed to do all of that and then just like be friends and stuff with the people who are arresting Marine Le Pen? Are you kidding me? That's not his responsibility. If Trump had said, hey, let's be friends to Mark Carney, or if Trump had said, oh, we're gonna promote Polyev, who is himself a completely, is fucking Mitt Romney. Polyev's not gonna stop illegal immigration into Canada. This is utterly fanciful stuff. And again, I like Sargon. And this is part of the reason he can't see this is because he's not American. This is abundantly clear to an American. We voted for a president to start putting our interests first. I just talked about, earlier in the show, I talked about the illegals and how much we're paying for them and their fraud in our elections and the state of our younger generations, the college system completely breaking down. I've got a bunch of stuff about housing that I haven't had in here. You cannot be a serious person and look at me straight in the face and say that Americans have been taking advantage of the rest of the world. Look at the state that we're in. This is not an imperial homeland that's just parasitizing off of everyone else and exporting all of our shit onto everyone else. We ourselves have been occupied. And the interests that we've been occupied by have been tilting the playing field towards Europe, whether you want to call them European or they're just globalists or whatever they are. We have been occupied by them. We're throwing off that yoke. We cannot throw off that yoke for us and also throw off that yoke for you. The best we can offer is that us throwing off that yoke ourselves, us cutting off the plundering of our coffers, deals such a fatal blow to them that it actually facilitates the right-wing movements in other countries. But those right-wing movements in other countries are going to have to take this on themselves. Once again, it is not the president of the United States' responsibility to promote right-wing movements in other countries. To whatever extent he can, in certain ways, great. Incidentally, I think breaking the back of the globalists is de facto promoting their movements. If they can get past the ethnic resentment and the knee-jerk European impulse to go, oh, stupid, braggadocious Americans that are so egotistical and only think about themselves. If you could get past that, then what Trump is doing right now is he's carving a wake that other nations are going to have an opportunity to follow in behind. This is the upshot of Build a Caesar. Bukele did it first. Now Trump is doing it. As Trump begins to do these things and brute forces them through, it's going to renormalize. It's going to suck. It's going to be really hard. There's going to be lots of economic catastrophe. And the thing that Trump's enemies are going to want to brand him with is he's chaotic. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's braggadocious. He's egotistical. He makes it all about himself. He's just making enemies needlessly. He's hateful. Yada, 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 yada. So you, Eurobro, cannot look at me and tell me that you're the authentic right wing of Europe who Trump is attacking and say the exact same things about Trump. This notion that Trump is supposed to promote the particular political policies that he shares in all these other countries, that's his responsibility, and that protecting American industry needs to take a back seat to that. This is just taking the GAE thinking and just switching it around. I started writing out some thoughts in response to someone, and I haven't completely finished them yet, but I wanted to read what little bit I have so far. This was speaking specifically with respect to the guys like Sargon and AA. And the person I was responding to was basically saying that, implying that they're being malicious or something. I said, what they're imagining, sincerely, I don't believe they're being mendacious, is that Trump's destiny is to centralize the GAE, thus making it based, and then to establish himself as a new office at its head. So they have this latent globalist thinking, these like presuppositions that are unchallenged because I think they don't even recognize them. And they're like, we're going to have the same globalist system, but we're going to have a based head of it. That's what we need. We need to get the based head of the globalist system to make all the things based. But Trump has no interest in that, nor should he. There will be a new empire, but it will take a different form. It will be opt-in only. The world will orbit around the gravity well that is America, not because America is trying to force them in, but because America is forcing them out. We are paywalling our markets. You have to pay to get in. You have to pay to play because of how valuable it is. We know what we have. And if you pay to play, you're going to benefit from it tremendously. But you have to get over the ego that says, no, we're all equal and we shouldn't have to be subservient to the Americans. You're going to have to be subservient to the Americans simply because of the nature of what America is. The GAE is trying to force everyone in, import the entire world. The Trump model is reverse everything, put a wall around, and charge you a cover fee to get in if you want to play ball. And if you're willing to pay that, if you want to operate on our terms, then great, we can be the best of friends. But now America is going to be forcing everyone out for its own good and for their own good, because this relationship is not sustainable. Everyone will inevitably acquiesce, not by force, but by necessity, as long as he stays the course. No one will be able to afford being out. It will be an empire that goes somewhere, not one that seeks to freeze everything in its place for all time. That urge to freeze everything is liberalism. End of history, Fukuyama, etc. The urge to freeze necessitates the destruction of borders in an attempt to maintain the status quo. Anything that seeks to reimpose borders is intrinsically anti-liberal in its orientation. The liberal globalist moonshot is to establish a global liberal order. The liberal globalist moonshot to establish a global liberal order is backfiring into a global anti-liberal movement, with Trump paradoxically at its head. In order for that movement to continue, for it to maintain its anti-liberal orientation, Trump must stay the course, which means, again paradoxically, that him continuing to be rough with his allies is the best way to fan the flames of the anti-liberal spirit in these nations. This isn't even 4D chess, but you could think of it that way if you wanted to. It's kind of just like, I don't know, basic rational game theory. Trump has to break the back of the global order as it has existed. The way that he does that is by establishing America's position and saying, this is how we are going to operate. You can get on board and cooperate with us and play ball, in which case you're an ally. Or you can fight against us and you can plant stories and you can slander and you can try to get into a trade war with us and you can try to assert your will against us and your back is going to get broken. Why? Because we can. Because this is what it means to protect our interests. It's been a long time since Americans or non-Americans saw an American president promoting American interests, actually. And it's so stereotypically European that as soon as they see it, they start freaking out about it. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. The reason it's uncomfortable is because Europeans, the leadership class and the rank and file, are going to have to swallow the tough pill that is the recognition that America is going to be the predominant world power and that it deserves to. Because of all the reasons that I've laid out. The geographic reasons, the economic reasons, the infrastructure reasons, the American spirit. That cowboy spirit, the renegade spirit, the let's go fucking colonize Mars spirit. If America doesn't do that, nobody is going to. If America is not out pushing the envelope, innovating, developing, building, nobody else will. How do I know? Because when America stopped, so did everybody else. What amazing innovations have been invented, created? You can hardly be an entrepreneur in Europe now compared to America. The worse America has gotten, the more like the European system it has gotten. This is very odd. I'm led to believe that this has been some great deep scheme of the Americans to create this global empire that's run out of Washington or New York, as the case may be. And yet, the more that this gets implanted, the more European it's looking. And the less American it's looking. Isn't that odd? What a strange empire. Vagrant, powerful poster, had a great take on this. He said, I really like Carl, but I feel the need to disagree strongly with this. The war is nowhere near over. Such hubris is madness. The reason the right loses in Canada and Europe is because they cave to the left constantly and take weak oppositional stances, not giving the public a reason to take the plunge and join the fight. Think of people like Farage or Polyev, dipping their toes in the Rubicon while upholding all the liberal talking points that created this mess in the first place. They lose because they are weak, half measures, not because of Trump finally standing up for America. Many non-American right-wing movements are still in their infancy. It's interesting to see these movements run into the controlled opposition problems we faced in the 2010s on a delayed fuse. But if I can offer a word of advice to these newer movements abroad, learn from our example. Don't waste your time hand-wringing over what parts of the regime might be worth protecting. None of it is. Conquest is all that matters. Learn this quickly. We stand at a fork in the road, and the American right has had a lot of experience here. We are going this way. We advise you to follow, and don't waste time going down false paths of palatability or reconciliation with the enemy. Trust us here. For example, the left is not claiming the nationalistic position on tariffs or Ukraine. This whole shtick just exposes their fraud. We've seen this over and over again here, but such exposure is relatively new for a nation like Canada. You can't just turn on jingoistic nationalism after spending decades exterminating your own native populations with migrants. This tepid reaction to American tariffs and American desires for peace with Russia merely exposes the duplicity of the left. But this stuff touches a nerve with many non-American right-wingers because it's new territory for them. Think back to the pearl clutching over the Tea Party protests here and how much we learned about the regime's duplicity through it. The European or Canadian right hasn't had such an experience yet. They're about a decade behind us in right-wing political formation. I'm optimistic they'll get there eventually, but until then, I kindly ask that they stop lecturing us about moderating or whatever. We've seen what moderating leads to: total civilizational death, extinction. There is no moderating with evil, only victory over it. There is no compromising with the genocidal left, only their total subjugation. No, Ukraine is not worth nuclear war. No, you don't get to have tariffs on America without reciprocation. And yes, interventionism and free trade are both big pieces of the same evil leftist regime that seeks the extermination of us all as Western peoples. You can't fight back against it while maintaining its systems. You can't tie one hand behind your back out of pity. Non-Americans are going to have to reconcile this if they want to save themselves. I know it's difficult for pension societies to understand, but trust us, you won't make any actual dents against the left if you cave to the very paradigm which gives them power in the first place. America has always led alone and will continue to do so. Europe and the others can follow us. Forge your own paths and save your people, which we want more than anything. Or you can hold on to your pride and suffer under the leftist boot and be wiped out within a generation because you wanted to stay polite. You can't have both, and the time for choosing is fast approaching. We've made our choice for America. We will fight for Americans, and you're going to have to accept it. I advise you make the same choice for yourselves, and later we can work out the finer details between our sovereign nations. As for the final comment in Carl's post, I would advise non-Americans to recall that conquering is in fact governing. Perhaps others have forgotten this in their comfort, but you don't get to win against the left with clean hands. Trying to separate conquest from governance is exactly why the right has been losing for decades. Conquest is governance. We don't stop this train until total victory is achieved. We don't moderate for anyone. This is war. Get on board or stay out of the way. And then Fugitive Caesar, as he says, always sums it up succinctly. He says, Trump started by internally purging the American right-wing party, who had been worthless controlled opposition for decades. Jeb Bush types are done. Now Trump is purging the European and Canadian right-wing parties. Everything fake must be cleared away. And here's my direct response to Carl. I said, here's the thing. If the success of right-wing movements in other countries depends upon Trump being demure and acquiescent to their baby blood drinking leadership classes, then those movements deserve to fail. America's raison d'etre is not and cannot be bending over backwards to facilitate the political agendas of her so-called allies. We didn't elect Trump so that he could continue the traitorous policies of his immediate forebears, selling out the country, cucking on American sovereignty at every turn in the name of some vague global alliance. We're in a new epoch now, one in which we're happy to have allies, but where no one is an ally by default. The previous slate is being wiped clean. If managerial liberalism is going to seek to retrench itself in Europe and Canada under the guise of patriotism and nationalism, that's something the Europeans and Canadians need to sort out for themselves. It's not our responsibility to sacrifice for your nations. We've spent a century and trillions of dollars and millions of lives playing that game. It's over. Trump is our president, and his responsibility is to protect our sovereignty. And no amount of wheedling and whinging is going to change that. It's time for the Eurobros and Europeans to sort out their own shit without the presumption that America will be there to bail them out. This is tough love. And this is the sort of response that I was talking about from whoever this fag is. Revealed preference. You want the European right to fail. I said, are you a woman? He said, are you brown? And I said, I'll take that as a yes. I'm not going to debate geopolitics with a woman. Josh Ham sighting. He says, what did they think America First meant? Vibes? Book reports? America First means Americans first. We're working for the benefit of our people and our progeny. We wish y'all all the best, but you're on your own. Good luck and Godspeed. And then a response here. We got a Rob P sighting. I noticed that that Rob P was gone because his tweet was gone here. It made me sad, but then I saw him in the chat, so that was good. Charlemagne said about Carl Benjamin, he said, English guy telling the American president he has to govern for Canada. And this is a response from Carl. He responded to someone who responded to him. The guy said, I don't think the opposite strategy would have worked where Trump cozies up with foreign right-wing opposition to the globalists, if there actually are any. Within these countries, with the anti-Trump media, such alliances would have some of the right there. Yada, yada, yada. So Sargon says, of course it would work. As things got worse in our countries and got better in the U.S., Trump extending the hand of friendship would have strengthened the rights arguments in the rest of the West. Trump could have been collegial and grandfatherly, expressed concern for those countries, and given them an off-ramp from leftism. As it stands now, being associated with Trump isn't just partisan politics, it's become something akin to treason. This was deeply unwise. And I just said he thinks we still live in a world where arguments matter. This is not a matter of arguments. This idea that Trump could just be collegial and grandfatherly and give them an off-ramp from leftism. No, like that. This is not how any of this works. There's not like some argument that you can just make. And if Trump is like collegial and grandfatherly, then the people who are putting Marine Le Pen in prison would be like, oh, actually, let's just be friends with Americans now. No. This is not a time for arguments. There are no arguments for this. You're not going to argue your way to preserving the West. This guy replied and said, you misunderstand Carl. He doesn't see Europe as being superior. He sees the West needs American leadership to defeat the left. If Trump is alienating the right in Europe, it's going to make the left that much harder to defeat in the long run. And I said, quite frankly, I don't care about the status of the left in Europe. I don't want my president moderating, read, going soft on foreign incursions upon American sovereignty, whether immigration, trade, finance at all. It's not Trump's responsibility to make life easier for the EUROBROS at the expense of Americans. Trump's job isn't to defeat the left. His job is to protect and promote American sovereignty. The guy said, if Trump is alienating the right in Europe, it's going to make the left that much harder to defeat in the long run. If the right in Europe is being alienated by what Trump is doing, the right in Europe deserves to lose. That's the point. It's up to the right in Europe to recognize what Trump is doing, pull their panties out of their butt cracks, and get to work. That's how Europe saves itself. It doesn't save itself by collapsing into, oh, Trump isn't being grandfatherly enough. I say this with great love and affection. The EuroBros situation is not going to be improved because the American president is going to come do all the things that the previous American presidents did, but actually have it be based this time. That world is over. That world is dying. The American president is going to advocate for the American people and the American interests. And if that makes life harder on Europeans, then the Europeans are very much incentivized to change their own priorities and realign themselves, because America is not going to sacrifice its own potential just so Europeans can feel better about themselves. You're a smaller, poorer nation. You don't have the capacity to project power. This goes for any of the European nations. You don't have the capacity to project power that America does. You don't have the economic potential that America does. You don't have the ability to tilt the global economy against America anymore. It's not going to happen. You must accept a subservient posture to Americans. That doesn't mean you need to be humiliated. It means you can come under the orbit of protection, but you're going to be a sovereign nation that is subservient, that is a vassal state to the superior state. You're going to have to accept vassalage and like it. This is the tough love. And I would say this if I wasn't an American. This here is a very good example. Again, this is just rhetoric. There's something behind it, but it is just rhetoric. From Giorgia Meloni. This is the posture that the Europeans need to have for their own sake.
Are you staying with Euro or are you staying with US? I'm staying with Italy, as always. I'm in Euro, I'm for the West. What does it mean? The electoral campaign is finished. And the idea that the relation between you and your counterparts change based on who wins the election is something I will never follow. Our relations with the US are the most important relation that we have. The United States have always been our first ally. We respect them and we want to enhance that cooperation.
That's the correct posture. This is what it means to follow a leader. And all of these guys who are spazzing out about all these Europeans who are having a hard time coming to grips with this new reality are revealing that they don't actually understand hierarchy just yet. The big dog in the room has made his position clear. You are not the big dog. So your responsibility is to orbit yourself around the big dog. That's how it works. If you have a problem with that, then you can't call yourself some like elite theorist expert. Because this is basic elite theory. You're kicking against the pricks. You're trying to fight inevitable reality because it's uncomfortable. The European nations are not going to have there are 3-ish nations in the world that could truly function as fully independent sovereign nations that also maintain a approximately first world standard of living, that can fully furnish an entire military that could take on any comer. And of those 3, there's one that clearly has the capacity to be head and shoulders above the rest. And this sort of reaction from the right-wing Europeans tells me that they haven't internalized this reality. They still have this Fukuyama brain that is like, oh, we can be a sovereign nation that is fully self-determined, that doesn't have to be subservient to any other interests. When your entire nation is smaller than half of our states, and your per capita income is half what the poorest states are in the US or whatever, less than. No, you're not going to be a first world superpower, sovereign, fully self-determined. You're just not gonna. You're going to have to choose a daddy. You could choose the Russian daddy if you want. You could choose the Chinese daddy. Or you can get the American daddy. Now that's tough. America hasn't been around a long time. It was populated by Europeans. Europeans pride themselves on their older status. They see themselves as the elders. They look down on Americans naturally, while also obsessing themselves with Americans. And I've experienced this. I lived in America. I saw I lived in Europe. I had some of these kinds of interactions. I was like a curiosity. Like people were like fascinated and also kind of like stupid Americans. You know, they're all kind of dumb. They don't really know how anything works, but they're also like kind of interesting and you know, like I've experienced that. I know that Europeans have that latent sense of superiority towards Americans. Americans are never going to be like all about decorum and being moderate and staid. That's not. You're never going to get that out of Americans. This is a feature and a bug. But the best possible thing that our Eurobros can do is to recognize the inevitability of what Trump is doing, let Trump be Trump, and draft in his wake. All right, we're at 3.5 hours, so I'm just going to call it there. I had a couple more things to get into, but I'll just save those for tomorrow. So, a reminder to those of you who came in kind of late, go to ewbsx.app. Go back and watch the beginning of this episode. Go back to the very beginning of the stream. If you want to know what ewbsx.app is all about, go check it out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. And let me just check some of your comments here real quick. Yeah, the Iceman says support and give love to their nationalist movements. They're going to need it. Absolutely. Like I fully support it. I want to see their nationalist movements be successful, and I think they're going to be successful. The real question is what the cost of it is going to be, but I think it's going to happen. They just have to recognize that they're going to have to exist in the orbit of the dominion of the United States. And it's not going to be a United States that sacrifices for the sake of the global community or moderates to help promote political change in other countries or whatever. No, it's going to be United States pursuing the United States interests. Going to have to just deal with it. Dyson says, we have 1 billion Chinese that eat rats. I'll take my brothers over that every day. Yeah, right. Yeah. Glonk says, I agree, Iceman, but the dynamic is changing and the Eurobros need to accept that. Right. 4Stringer78 says, academic agent had some really bad takes lately. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of doing a thing, and I still like him. I still enjoy him. I still enjoy listening to him. He unfollowed me, which I'm not surprised. I've been if you were a British academic living in Britain in its current state and having to, I can imagine it being difficult for a British person to reconcile everything that's happening. So I don't think that he's being insincere. I don't think that, I mean, I think he's trolling in the sense of like, he's trying to get a rise out of people, but I think he's being sincere. I don't think he's a dishonest person. Kate says if these countries still had their empires, this would be an entirely different discussion, but they don't. They gave that up a long time ago and they need to accept that. Right. This is just, it's the pattern of history. Eventually the American empire is going to run its course, but it's probably going to be many decades, if not centuries. It's only just getting started now. All right. Well, do me a favor. Post some Trumps in the chat. Help us battle the algorithm and say a good word for our poor brothers dealing with Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome. I know it's a burden I have to carry with me every day, and it's tough, but I'll do it for my people. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's all I got for now. EWBSX.app, go check it out. Let's see some HHs in the chat because Hulk is warming up. He's ready to come give you the good word. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. And until then, here's Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania